Chapter 147. Another saber fell, and with a clanging sound, sparks flew. Lan Yudi, who should have been forced back by this saber, didn't. At some unknown time, a short saber had appeared in her hand. It was this short saber that had blocked Lu Ye's attack. Lu Ye hurriedly retracted his blade and slashed again. Lan Yudi snorted coldly. Too big of an opening! Even though Lu Ye saw this punch, he was unable to guard against it. In a hurry, a defensive spirit rune appeared in front of his abdomen. With a boom, spirit energy exploded. This punch sent Lu Ye back 70 to 80 feet. His stomach churned and he almost couldn't breathe. Lan Yudi was astonished. What was that? She felt that her punch had shattered something, but in the fierce battle, she didn't see it clearly. She didn't have time to think. Lu Ye, who had just stabilized himself, rushed towards her like a gust of wind. Her vision was immediately filled with the gleam of a blade. Lan Yudi twisted her body to dodge. Her aura began to change, and her speed became even faster than before. Clanging sounds continuously rang out as the long and short blades collided, creating a continuous symphony in the night. Roar! Hoopa suddenly pounced from behind Lan Yudi. This woman seemed to have eyes on the back of her head as she easily dodged. At the same time, she kicked out and sent the sturdy Hoopa flying. However, in midair, Hoopa's long tail curled and lashed out at Lan Yudi like a whip. This caught Lan Yudi off guard. She gritted her teeth and growled, "What a fierce beast!" She hurriedly retreated. At the same time, Lu Ye had already scurried to Hoopa's side. He flipped onto the tiger's back and prepared to flee. Although they hadn't fought for long, he was certain that he wasn't this woman's match. If he didn't run now, when would he? However, his expression soon turned serious. This was because several spirit energy fluctuations were rapidly approaching from all directions. In the blink of an eye, they were right in front of him. Why are they fighting? A youth stared at the messy battlefield, dumbfounded. They had originally planned to protect them from the shadows not far away. However, when they heard the sounds of battle, they thought that the people of Myriad Devil Ridge had attacked and hurried over to provide support. They didn't expect to see this scene. "Stop fighting, stop fighting, stop fighting," someone shouted. Someone shouted, "Junior Brother Lu, please calm down. This is a misunderstanding." Riding atop the tiger's back, Lu Ye glanced around coldly. There were 6 people here, 3 of whom were 6th order while the other 3 were 5th order. If he wasn't mistaken, one of the people who had shouted just now was the one who had chased after Lan Yudi. These guys were in cahoot. Surrounded by such a powerful team, Lu Ye could only choose to escape from the direction of the 5th Order Masters, and even then, he might not succeed. However, what made Lu Ye somewhat concerned was that these people did not show any hostility towards him. One of them even addressed him as Junior Brother Lu. Ever since he had entered the Spirit Stream battlefield, other than the Loose Rangers Society members and no one else knew his surname. Whenever he interacted with outsiders, he referred to himself as One Leaf. How did this person know that his surname was Lu? There was also the strange encounter in the past few days. He faintly felt that there was a connection between these things. The 6th Order, who had just spoken, walked over to Lan Yudi and asked in confusion, "Why are you fighting with him? Didn't she say that she would stay by his side and protect him? How could she protect him like this?" Lan Yudi also came back to her senses and wore an embarrassed expression. "I couldn't hold myself back." The main reason was because this little brat had actually drugged her and she had fallen for it. However, the fight just now had allowed her to see how terrifying this 5th Order Lu Ye was. This guy's fighting style was too aggressive, and his attacks were extremely ruthless. She had never seen such a 5th Order Master before. Compared to him, her own 5th Order Master was as gentle as a little white rabbit. No wonder that group of Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators had been cut down like melons and vegetables during the day. His powerful aggressiveness and ruthless attacks could easily intimidate cultivators in the same realm and cause them to succumb to his blade. "Who are you?" Lu Yi did not relax his vigilance. When he asked this question, he glanced towards one of the Fifth Order Masters. Breaking through from this side had the highest chance of success. The young man who had spoken earlier secretly felt a headache. He could see Lu Ye's vigilance and distrust, which was understandable. If he were in Lu Ye's position, he would also not easily trust a group of strangers. He did not directly answer Lu Ye's question to avoid any more misunderstandings. At the same time, to ensure that the conversation went smoothly, he raised his hand and said solemnly, "Purple Cloud Mountain's Chi Xian respectfully invites Heaven's Secret. The 7 of us have no malice towards junior brother Lu Yi and are only here for the sex mission. Please bear witness to this." Something seemed to fall from the heavens. Chi Xian looked at Lu Yi on the tiger's back and said, "Junior brother, please calm down." Lu Yi frowned and slowly sheathed his long saber. The Heaven's Secret oath was not something to be trifled with. Since the other party dared to swear such an oath, it meant that they had no malice towards him. Chi Xian's face turned solemn. "I know that junior brother must have a lot of questions, but this is not the place to talk. Junior brother, please follow us to a secluded place, how about it?" Lu Yi was silent for a moment before nodding. "All right." He really did have a lot of questions now. "Please." Chi Xian stretched out his hand and led the way. The others also stepped forward to follow him. "Wait a moment." Lan Yuti raised her hand. "Senior sister, what's the matter?" Chi Xian turned around and asked. Lan Yuti's expression was somewhat awkward. "I've been poisoned. I can't circulate my spiritual power, so I can't walk." Although she had forcibly suppressed the poison, it had only caused it to erupt even more violently. At this moment, her spiritual power was like stagnant water, unable to be circulated at all. Everyone was shocked. Who did it? Lan Yuti turned her head to look at Lu Yi, while Lu Yi looked to the side at the night. The group's expressions became strange. Some people wanted to laugh but did not dare to. Their shoulders trembled as they tried to hold back their laughter. However, they finally understood why their senior sister had obviously gone to protect Lu Yi, yet ended up fighting. No one would be able to bear such a thing. Chi Xian said weakly, "Then should I carry you?" "Scram. This old lady doesn't want you to carry her." Lan Yuti flatly refused, then looked at Lu Yi and said, "Whoever did it will take responsibility. Let your mount carry me." Lu Yi thought for a moment, then raised his hand and patted the tiger's back. Lan Yuti stepped forward and jumped onto the tiger's back. Hupo was somewhat unwilling, but he still endured it. "Let's go." Chi Xian continued to lead the way. The group moved forward in silence, their speed extremely fast. 2 hours later, everyone found a cave to hide in. Lu Yi waited for the group from Purple Cloud Mountain to enter before leading Hupo in. He naturally could not hide his intentions, but everyone pretended not to notice. The cave was dry, so everyone sat down cross-legged. Lu Yi was the first to speak. "How do you know my name?" Chi Xian laughed when he heard this. "Junior brother really doesn't know anything about your situation? In what way? It seems that junior brother really doesn't understand his situation, huh?" Chi Xian sighed and said, "Junior brother's identity has already been exposed. Now, not only do we know that you are a disciple of the Blue Blood sect, but many people throughout the Spirit Stream battlefield also know." Lu Yi frowned. His identity had been exposed? How had it been exposed? Also, what did many people mean? Ever since he entered the Spirit Stream battlefield, he had been very careful and cautious. Before entering, the sect master had warned him not to expose his identity as a disciple of the Blue Blood sect. Although he did not know why the sect master had warned him, the sect master would not harm him. When interacting with outsiders, he only referred to himself as Yi. Even if Hua Si and the others knew his name, it was impossible for them to know his background. Only one person had recognized him, and that person was a slave miner he had once worked with in Evil Moon Valley's mine at the entrance of Ian City's Heavenly Secret Commerce Union. That was just a coincidence. Lu Yi did not say much to the slave miner at the time and quickly left after being recognized. However, after leaving Ian City, he was hunted down by Dong Shai. He suddenly remembered that before Dong Shai died, he had used the battlefield mark to send a message. At that time, he had thought that Dong Shai was gathering helpers, but no one had come to kill him, so the matter had been left unsettled. Dong Shai would have died without a doubt, and even if he had gathered helpers, it would have been too late. But what if he was not gathering helpers? Was it Dong Shai? When the Burning Moon Mountain disciple from Ian City had contacted him, Dong Shai had seen him. Perhaps he had used some method to inquire about his background from that person before Dong Shai died. He had said that he would wait for him on the road to the Yellow Springs. It sounded like the useless barking of a dying man, but what if he really felt that way? What's wrong with my identity? This was what Lu Yi did not understand the most. Before he entered the Spirit Stream battlefield, the sect master had specifically warned him about this matter so that Lu Yi would understand that revealing his identity would not benefit him. He had once guessed that the Jade Blood sect might have done something that angered the heavens and caused the Jade Blood sect's disciples to be in a bad situation on the Spirit Stream battlefield. I don't know what the specific problem is, but it's related to some old secrets. I only know that the entire Spirit Stream battlefield is in chaos because of Junior Brother. Many sects in Myriad Demon Ridge want you dead, and many sects in Grand Heaven Alliance are thinking of ways to protect you. Our Purple Cloud Mountain is one of them. We have received orders from our master to come and find you. Lu Yi was confused when he heard this. The Spirit Stream battlefield is in chaos because of me? He was just a fifth-order cultivator. So how could he influence the situation of the entire Spirit Stream battlefield? The root cause was definitely not him, but his identity as a disciple of the Jade Blood sect. If Chi Xian had not lied to him, then the sect he had been forced to choose seemed to be hiding some incredible secrets. We young people don't know the specifics of the past, but as far as I know, the Jade Blood sect was still a first-grade sect a few decades ago. Lan Yu Dai, who had been dispelling the pill toxins, suddenly spoke. She had the highest cultivation, so she knew more. Later, for some unknown reason, the sect's grade fell year after year until it finally fell to the 9th order and was on the verge of being abolished. The Jade Blood sect has not accepted any disciples for 30 years, and if no new disciples join the sect's name will be completely erased in 2 months' time during the sect's grade assessment. Chapter 148. Many sects in the Myriad Demon Ridge have been waiting for this day, but half a year ago, the Jade Blood sect accepted a disciple, allowing the Jade Blood sect to continue existing. That disciple was you. Lan Yudi looked at Lu Yi quietly. Originally, everyone thought you were dead because it was rumored that Elder Tang of the Jade Blood sect was ambushed when he brought you back to the sect. Elder Tang was seriously injured and you died in the aftermath of the battle. However, a few days ago, news about you suddenly spread in the Spirit Stream battlefield. Therefore, many sects in the Myriad Demon Ridge, who don't want the Jade Blood sect to continue existing, have secretly made their move. They want to kill you halfway because if they kill you, the Jade Blood sect will cease to exist in 2 months. Lu Yi didn't say anything as he digested this information. He never knew that his life and death were related to the survival of the Jade Blood sect. Hadn't accepted a disciple in 30 years? Lu Yi recalled that when he asked the sect master about the disciples on the Flying Dragon ship, the sect master had avoided answering. At that time, he only felt that his sect's talent had withered and the sect was declining, but now it seemed that the situation was more serious than he thought. It wasn't that the sect's talent had withered or the sect was declining, it was that the sect was about to be eliminated. In the past few days, he had encountered so many cultivators from the Myriad Demons Ridge's camp. That made sense. Those fellows were here specifically to find him. No wonder they were so happy to see him. Many sects from the Myriad Demon Ridge have already made their move. Many sects from the Grand Heaven Alliance have also intervened. One side wants to kill you and the other side wants to protect you. The situation at the Spirit Stream battlefield has become extremely chaotic. Which side will win will depend on whether you can return to the Jade Blood Sect station alive. Our sect was indebted to the Jade Blood Sect in the past, so we were ordered by our sect to escort you. We didn't reveal our identities immediately because we were afraid you wouldn't trust us and also to guard against the Myriad Demon Ridge's actions. It's more convenient to hide in the dark after all. Senior Sister Lon can protect you. That's all the information we have right now. You can ask anything you want. Xian said simply and looked at Lu Yi. Of course, Lu Yi had many things he wanted to ask, such as how the sect master's injuries were and why the Jade Blood Sect was being targeted like this. However, others might not know these things. He thought about it and said, "So, there will be people with high cultivation levels coming to kill me? Of course, there will be people from the core circle who will make a move. However, even if those people can fly, it will take some time for them to rush over. Right now, the people we need to deal with don't have high cultivation because they are all rushing over from nearby. However, the further we go, the stronger the enemies will be. However, you don't have to worry too much. Since the Myriad Demons Ridge has taken action, the Grand Sky Alliance has also taken action. At the very least, that person has already set off. As long as we can delay until that person arrives, it won't be a problem to keep you alive." "Who is that?" Lu Yi asked. Lan Yuti shook her head. "When you see him, you'll naturally understand. That person's temper isn't good. I don't want to talk about him behind his back. This person must be very strong and has a deep relationship with the Blue Blood Sect," Lu Yi thought to himself. "I don't have anything to ask for now," Lu Yi said. "Then let's make a plan." Lan Yuti glanced at Hu Po, who was prostrating himself behind Lu Yi. "You have two choices now. One is to travel with us alone. That way, you'll be able to avoid being noticed. Everyone knows that you're riding a snow-white tiger. As long as those from the Myriad Demons Ridge see this white tiger, they'll be able to find you. It's the most eye-catching symbol. I choose the second choice. If the cultivators from the Myriad Demons Ridge took Hu Po as their target, then Hu Po would definitely die once he was separated from him." "Humph." Lan Yuti snorted softly. "Then take this big tiger with you. If you encounter any danger, it'll be easier for you to escape." She slowly stood up, her spirit energy having returned to normal. Looking at everyone with a serious expression, she said, "We'll follow the original plan. We'll split into two groups. I'll protect junior brother Lu and try to avoid the cultivators from the Myriad Demons Ridge. I'll leave the rest to you." The other 6 stood up and responded, "Yes. Then let's go." This group of people was very straightforward. Now that they had contacted Lu Yi, they were ready to act. After all, staying here would only increase the number of variables. Lu Ye's mood was complicated. He never thought that a little fifth-order cultivator like him would affect the situation of the entire Spirit Stream battlefield. For a moment, he didn't know whether to feel honored or nervous. "Many thanks, everyone," he bowed deeply. Whether the situation was as Lan Yuti and the others had said remained to be verified, but there was a high probability that this group was not deceiving him. He wasn't going to refuse their kindness. Firstly, he wanted to verify their words. Secondly, if the situation was really so serious, he definitely wouldn't be able to survive with his current fifth-order cultivation. If he wanted to survive, he could only rely on the power left behind by the Blue Blood Sect. "Ha!" Lan Yuti chuckled, "That's more like it. But if you really want to thank us, then live well. We don't know about the grievances of the previous generation, but if you die, then our mission will have failed." Saying so, she raised her hand and wiped her battlefield mark. A blue light flew towards Lu Yi. Lu Yi raised his hand to meet it, and the blue light fell into the back of his hand. Lu Yi felt that another brand had appeared in his battlefield mark. At that moment, a message came from his battlefield mark. Lu Yi checked it and found that it was from Green Feather Mountain's Xiejin. Junior brother Yi, I heard some rumors. I don't know if it's you. If it is you, be careful. Myriad Demon's Ridge seems to have dispatched many people to look for you. Lu Yi thought about it for a moment before replying, Many thanks for informing me. Even Xiejin had heard some of the recent rumors. It was obvious that this matter had become a hot topic in the entire Spirit Stream battlefield. When he sent this message, the 6 people from Purple Cloud Mountain had already left under Qi Xian's lead. Lan Yuti stayed behind. The two waited silently in the cave for half an hour before Lan Yuti suddenly said, Let's go. She jumped onto the tiger's back, causing Lu Yi to stare at her in amazement. What are you waiting for? Come on, I can't run away with you, right? Lan Yuti urged. Lu Yi could only follow suit, but he sat behind Lan Yuti. Hoopa scurried out of the cave, and under the guidance of Lan Yuti, it began to run. It had heard the conversation between Lu Yi and the people from Mount Purple Cloud, so it knew that the current situation wasn't very good. Therefore, it moved quietly, trying its best to avoid making any noise. Your pet beast is quite fast, Lan Yuti said, trying to defuse the awkwardness in her heart. The main issue was that there was a fiery aura on her back, which made her feel very uncomfortable. However, since she had to protect Lu Yi, she had no other choice but to ride with him. Lan Yuti seemed to have a carefree personality, but she had never been so close to a man before. While riding, it was inevitable that there would be some physical contact, causing goosebumps to appear on her smooth back. 4 hours later, intense spiritual power fluctuations suddenly came from nearby. Someone was fighting fiercely in that direction. However, Lan Yuti had already directed Hoopa in a different direction, perfectly avoiding that area. For her, the most important thing right now was to prevent Lu Yi from being exposed. If there were cultivators from Myriad Devil Ridge nearby, Qi Xian and the others would deal with them. An eagle in the sky continued to follow Hoopa. Under the eagle's gaze, it was clear as day what was happening on the ground. Forward, forward, forward. Every 4 to 6 hours, Lan Yuti would have Lu Yi stop and rest for a while. She and Lu Yi naturally didn't need to rest, but Hoopa needed to replenish his strength. Qi Xian and the others, who were secretly eliminating hidden dangers, also needed to rest. One day later, on the way, Lan Yuti suddenly asked, Junior brother Lu, are you sure you can block a 6th-order cultivator? And Lu Yi responded in a muffled voice. Good. Lan Yuti nodded. When she briefly fought with Lu Yi before, she realized that Lu Yi's strength far exceeded that of an ordinary 5th-order cultivator. An ordinary 5th-order cultivator wouldn't be able to block her attacks, even if she hadn't used her full strength at that time. Then let me see what you're capable of. Later, there will be a woman in red, you'll have to entangle her, don't show her any mercy. Is she beautiful? I don't know if she's beautiful or not, but her figure is very good. Hey, you won't really go easy on her, will you? Lan Yuti's pretty face sank. She almost wanted to change direction. However, if they didn't deal with the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators in front of them, Qi Xian and the others would be in trouble. Qi Xian and the others had already fought with another group of myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. However, it was too late to change direction now because Hoopa could already see the figures of the people in front of them from afar. Lan Yudi's body was half squatting on the tiger's back. She took out a short knife in each of her hands. Her curvaceous body was filled with explosive power at this moment. She looked like a cheetah that was about to pounce on its prey. The people in front also saw Hoopa's figure at this moment. At first, they were stunned, but then they became overjoyed. One of them shouted, "It's Lu Yi!" A vein popped out on Lu Yi's forehead. He secretly swore that if he had the chance, he would definitely beat up that vitality sex Lushan. The distance between them quickly closed. 200 meters away, Lan Yuti shouted, "Big Bai, be careful." She was warning Hoopa. Hoopa growled, "You're Big Bai. Your whole family is Big Bai." Lan Yuti's figure suddenly blurred as she rushed forward 200 meters. Lu Yi looked up and saw an afterimage brazenly rushing into the group of cultivators. A spell technique flew out and scattered the afterimage. Lan Yuti's figure had already appeared behind the enemies. Lu Yi didn't even see how she got there. He immediately understood that Lan Yuti hadn't used her full strength in the previous fight. Saber lights flashed, accompanied by a blood-curdling scream. A sixth-order cultivator fell into a pool of blood. It was an instant kill. Even if there was a gap in strength between the two of them, it wasn't easy to achieve this. The myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were obviously frightened. One of them cried out, a seventh-order ghost cultivator, "Be careful!" The scene immediately turned chaotic. Chapter 149. At the same time that Lan Yu Dai killed one of the enemies, Hoopa was already 10 meters away from the group of people. A spell technique flew towards him, but Hoopa's charging figure suddenly slid to the side, nimbly dodging the attack. At the same time, Lu Ye's figure leapt up, stepped on the tiger's back, and directly attacked a woman in red. Lan Yu Dai was right, this woman's figure was very good, especially her chest, which was quite heavy. She was a magic cultivator, and the spell technique that had attacked Lan Yu Dai and Hoopa before was cast by her. She was also Lu Ye's target. In midair, Lu Yi raised his hand, drew his sword, and slashed out. A spell technique that was heading towards him was cut apart, and spirit energy exploded. Another spell technique flew towards him. Although her casting speed wasn't as fast as Dong Shu Ye's, it wasn't slow either. Lu Yi couldn't avoid it. A flush of red appeared on the woman's face. She had hit him, and with her fifth-order cultivation, even if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured. She was rich. She seemed to have seen a mountain of spirit stones, an amount that she wouldn't be able to use in her lifetime. Many sects in the myriad Devil Ridge had issued a bounty for Lu Yi. No matter who killed Lu Yi, they could go to those sects to receive the bounty. If these bounties were added together, it would be a fortune that would move even a true lake stage expert. So, seeing that her spell technique had succeeded, the woman in red's mood surged. However, in the next moment, Lu Yi had arrived in front of her, his long sword covered in fiery red spirit energy slashing down. As the sword light flashed, the woman instinctively pushed her spirit energy barrier to block in front of her. With a crisp sound, the sturdy spirit energy barrier shattered, and the sharp sword slashed down diagonally from the top of the woman's head, cutting through her slender neck without any hindrance. The last thought that flashed through the woman's mind was, how did this Lu Yi appear in front of me? Her vision turned upside down, and her large eyes blinked twice before her consciousness fell into darkness. The last thing she saw was Lu Yi stabbing at the back of one of her junior brothers. The battle started and ended very quickly. After Lu Yi killed the sixth-order spell cultivator, he also killed a fifth-order weapon cultivator, and then that was it. Although she was also a sixth-order Dharma cultivator like Dong Shu Yi, the red-cloved woman's strength was much weaker than Dong Shu Ye's. After all, the former had fallen from the seventh order. Although his cultivation was no longer the same, his means were still there. Coupled with the fact that the woman had allowed Lu Yi to get close to her due to her agitated state of mind, how could she have a good ending? Dong Shu Ye's life was lost after Lu Yi, and Lu Ye's life was lost. Lu Ye's heart and Lu Ye's and Lan Yu Dai and Lan Yu Dai. This guy's killing people, both of them thought so. There were 5 cultivators from the Myriad Demon's Ridge in this group. 2 of them were at the 6th level, while the other 3 were at the 5th level. Lan Yuti's original plan was to have Lu Yi restrain the female Dharma cultivator for a while. After she dealt with the others, she would then deal with the Dharma cultivator. However, Lu Yi had slaughtered the Dharma cultivator with just a few slashes and even helped her kill one. "I've underestimated you." Lan Yu Dai was very satisfied with Lu Ye's expression. She secretly sighed that a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. The last disciple of a behemoth at the end of its road was so amazing. If the people of Myriad Demon Ridge saw his performance just now, they would be even more determined to eradicate him. Now, Myriad Demon Ridge wanted to kill Lu Yi, but it was only related to the survival of Blue Blood sect. As long as Lu Yi was killed, Blue Blood sect would be removed from the sect in 2 months. If they knew that this Blue Blood sect disciple could kill enemies above his realm so easily, they would be even more uneasy. Once such a person grew up, he would be a nightmare for any Myriad Demon Ridge force. As for the previous talk of having tender feelings for the fairer sex, it didn't exist. The beautiful female cultivator's eyes were still open. "Let's go," Lan Yu Dai called out, and Hoopa ran over. He wanted to help just now, but the battle ended too quickly, leaving him no room to do anything. The two of them continued on their journey. Lan Yu Dai's heart was heavy. Although the battle just now had ended quickly, it also revealed a problem. Those from the inner circle would soon arrive. There would definitely be more powerful enemies ahead. If those from the inner circle arrived, the core circle wouldn't be too far away. When the time came, the situation would be beyond her ability to deal with. Which sect was that? Lu Yi asked. Who knows? Lan Yu Dai replied. What are you doing? Remember them. Lan Yu Dai smiled. You're ambitious. She paused for a moment, then said, If we don't die after this mission, I'll go investigate for you. Then I'll have to thank you. No problem. As they continued on their journey, they occasionally encountered fierce battles. But the cultivators they needed to deal with weren't too strong, so Lu Yi and Lan Yu Dai were able to hold on by working together. Along the way, Lan Yu Dai would occasionally send out a message or search for information, as if she was contacting someone. 2 days later, she sighed and a trace of sadness flashed in her eyes. She sent out a message to Lu Yi. Chi Xin and the others have consumed too much energy. We can't catch up. Do we have to wait for them? We can't wait. Lan Yu Dai shook her head. There will be others ahead to receive them. Lu Yi nodded. For the next half a day, she was relatively quiet, as if she wasn't in a good mood. Lu Yi didn't know what she had encountered. In the evening, she suddenly raised her head and pointed in a direction. Run in that direction. No matter what you encounter, don't stop. Try your best to avoid fighting with those from the Myriad Devil Ridge. She crouched down on the tiger's back again. Where are you going? Lu Yi frowned. There are a lot of people from the Myriad Devil Ridge ahead. I'm going to pin them down. She turned her head and gave Lu Yi a deep look. Don't die. After saying this, she rushed out like a cheetah. Hoopa continued to advance in the direction she pointed. After a short while, spiritual power fluctuations came from the side. It should be Lan Yu Dai and the people from the Myriad Devil Ridge fighting. As the battle grew louder and louder, Hoopa carried Lu Yi and quickly left. In the jungle, several corpses lay on the ground, blood and severed limbs scattered everywhere. The originally dense jungle had been cleared out by the aftermath of the battle. In the middle of the battlefield, Lan Yu Dai, who was holding 2 scimitars in her hands, was dancing. 3 Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were fighting fiercely with her. Judging from the aura, the leader was a 7th Order cultivator, a 6th Order cultivator, and a 5th Order cultivator. With the 7th Order cultivator as the main force and the other 2 as support, the 3 of them attacked continuously. Lan Yu Dai already had several wounds on her body, and her clothes were dyed red with blood. In such a situation, even if she wanted to escape, she wouldn't be able to. Not to mention, there was still a 6th Order cultivator nearby, eyeing her covetously. From time to time, he would cast a spirit technique, making it impossible for Lan Yu Dai to defend herself. At this moment, she seemed to have gone crazy. Lavender lines had appeared on her cheeks at some point, making her look both beautiful and bewitching. Although she was outnumbered, Lan Yu Dai's aura was more powerful. Her two scimitars danced around, causing the three cultivators to be shocked. They didn't know what was wrong with this woman. The seventh-order cultivator was complaining incessantly. 80% of Lan Yudai's attacks were aimed at him, as if she wanted to drag him down with her even if she had to die. In the midst of the fierce battle, a tiger's roar suddenly came from the side. Both sides were startled. The myriad demons' ridge cultivators raised their heads and saw a large snow-white tiger springing out from the side and charging towards them. A large snow-white tiger. Their expressions brightened, and one of them shouted, "Lu Yi is nearby. Oh, no wonder this woman is so desperate. It turns out that she's covering for Lu Yi." While everyone's attention was on Hu Pu, a figure had already silently climbed onto the back of the spell cultivator standing outside the battle circle. That spell cultivator's body suddenly sank, and his instincts told him that something was wrong. A sharp and ruthless howl sounded in his ears. For a moment, his mind was distracted, and the technique he was about to use on Lan Yudai was interrupted. A gust of wind hit him from behind, and he felt a slight pain in his neck. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a person rushing past him. He wanted to raise his hand, but he found that he couldn't control his body. Lan Yudai, who was facing him, immediately sped up her attacks, her two scimitars turning into scimitars that filled the sky. Lu Yi rushed to the edge of the battlefield in a few steps and slashed his scimitar at the sixth-order cultivator. The sixth-order cultivator was originally wandering around the edge of the battlefield, restraining Lan Yudai's energy. His attention was attracted by Hu Pu, so he couldn't react in time. The scimitar slashed open a huge wound on his back, piercing his internal organs. The sixth-order cultivator let out a blood-curdling scream, but it stopped abruptly as the long scimitar pierced through his heart and came out of his body. The remaining two sixth-order cultivators turned pale with fright. Originally, they had the absolute advantage. Although many of them had died, that was because of Lan Yudai's sneak attack. The sneak attack of a seventh-order ghost cultivator wasn't easy to resist. Fortunately, they had already stabilized the situation, and as long as they delayed, they would be able to take down Lan Yudai. But at this critical moment, Lu Yi suddenly attacked, killing two sixth-order cultivators in a flash. 2 against 2. Lan Yudai suddenly slowed down her offensive, causing the two myriad demon ridge cultivators to be unable to adapt. Lu Yi had already found the fifth-order cultivator with his scimitar. After 2 slashes, the fifth-order cultivator's face turned pale. Although they were both fifth-order cultivators, he discovered that he couldn't compete with Lu Ye's speed or strength. He barely managed to block the third slash, but his body couldn't stop itself from falling backwards, leaving his chest wide open. This sixth-order cultivator was quite clever. When he realized that something was wrong, he had already reached into his storage bag and took out a golden body talisman and slapped it on himself. Enveloped by the golden light, he felt a sense of security. With a crash, the golden light shattered and a huge wound appeared on the sixth-order cultivator's body. Blood gushed out as he fell backwards. Hu Pu pounced over and bit the sixth-order cultivator's neck. With a crack, the bones in his neck broke, and Hu Pu's mouth was filled with blood. At this moment, the seventh-order cultivator flew back several meters. He suddenly raised his sword in front of him and spat out a mouthful of blood. His sword immediately turned into a stream of light and shot towards Lu Yi, arriving in front of him in the blink of an eye. Sword manipulation. Lan Yudai's beautiful face turned pale. Chapter 150. As Lan Yudai cried out in alarm, the short knife in her hand flew out, aiming directly at the sword light. However, the sword light was extremely fast, and the knife slashed at empty air. The sharp sword light arrived in front of Lu Yi in the blink of an eye. Lu Yi felt a sense of crisis he had never felt before. At this moment, his whole body went cold as he felt the aura of death enveloping him. At this moment of life and death, a larger and more solid spirit inscription appeared in front of him. Almost at the same time, the sword light arrived. Kacha. The sturdy spirit inscription only managed to block the sword light for a moment before it shattered. Even if Lu Yi desperately pushed his spirit energy, he couldn't stabilize it. Fortunately, this momentary block allowed him to lean to the side. As the sword light flew past him, Lu Yi felt a slight pain in his neck. Without any hesitation, he was about to rush forward with his dagger when he felt another gust of wind behind his head. He hurriedly urged his spirit inscription to protect his back. Kacha. The spirit inscription shattered and Lu Yi rolled on the ground. He felt a burst of energy above his head, and when he looked up, he saw the sword light. Wung. The sword light buzzed as it changed direction and attacked him for the third time. Lu Ye's concentration was high. This thing's lethality was the strongest he had ever encountered. If he was careless and was hit by it, he would die without a doubt. Just as Lu Yi stared at the sword beam and was about to activate the defensive spirit rune, a scream suddenly came from the side. Accompanied by the scream, the sword beam retracted and returned to its original appearance as a long sword before falling to the ground. Lu Yi followed the voice and looked over, only to see Lan Yudai holding a dagger and stabbing it into the 7th Order weapon cultivator's chest. The weapon cultivator didn't die immediately, but his expression was fierce as he shouted, "You can't escape." Lan Yudai stretched out her hand and the dagger she had just thrown flew back to her. She quickly backhanded it and cut the man's neck. Blood spurted out, but she managed to dodge in time. The 7th Order weapon cultivator fell to his knees and clutched his throat with both hands. A red light flew out from his body and landed on the back of Lan Yudai's hand. The lavender lines on her face slowly faded and Lan Yudai's figure staggered a few steps, seemingly unsteady. Lu Yi hurriedly stepped forward and supported her. "Let's go," Lan Yudi urged. There were spirit force fluctuations nearby. The commotion caused by the battle here must have alerted the surrounding cultivators. However, from how Lan Yudi had come alone, there was a high chance that she was from the myriad Devil Ridge. Lu Yi grabbed her body and leaped onto the tiger's back. Hupo immediately started running. The spiritual energy fluctuations behind him slowly faded away, but Lu Ye's expression was extremely dignified. He could feel that there was something wrong with Lan Yudi's situation. Just now, she had used some kind of secret technique that required her to pay a certain price. Now that the battle was over, her aura had become somewhat weak and her body was burning hot. Yi was already scouting ahead, looking for a suitable hiding place. As night fell, Lu Yi brought Lan Yudi to hide in a cave, which was found by Yi. After putting Lan Yudi down from the tiger's back, Lu Yi furrowed his brows. This woman's body was covered with injuries, and he hadn't had the time to deal with them. What was even more troublesome was that this woman had actually fainted. Her injuries were more serious than they appeared on the surface. "Yi, treat her injuries," Lu Yi ordered. He then took out the medicinal powder and clean cotton cloth that Hua Si had given to Yi. Yi immediately came out. During her time at Ing Mountain, she had learned a lot about medicine from Hua Si and Ruan Lingyu. Although she didn't have any special treatment methods, she could still bandage simple wounds. Hua Si had specially concocted these medicinal powders. They were extremely effective on wounds like swords and sabers. While Yi busied herself, Lu Yi sat cross-legged. He took out some spirit pills and swallowed them to replenish his spiritual energy. In the latter half of the night, Lan Yudi slowly woke up. She cautiously stood up and observed her surroundings. Only then did she let out a sigh of relief. Lu Yi threw a piece of jerky at her. She reached out and took a bite. After eating a bit and recovering a bit of strength, she said hoarsely, "I was too careless. I thought I could escape." If Lu Yi hadn't suddenly turned around to look for her during the day, she definitely would have died in that place. "Are Chi Xian and the others dead?" Lu Yi suddenly asked. Lan Yudi looked at him in surprise. She didn't know why Lu Yi would suddenly ask this. She had never told Lu Yi about the deaths of her fellow disciples. "Two died." Lan Yudi's eyes dimmed. Lu Yi was silent. He didn't even know which two had died. Lan Yuti said, "You should go on your own. Bringing me along will slow you down. With my injuries, I won't be able to fully recover in a short time. I'm afraid I won't be of much help if we encounter any enemies along the way. Let's go together." Lan Yuti was a bit annoyed. "I already said that going together will slow you down. Don't you understand?" "I understand. Since you understand, then go on your own." Lu Yi looked up at her and insisted, "Let's go together." Lan Yuti said in a low voice, "I think you really don't understand human language. Do you know that for this damned mission, 2 of my junior brothers and junior sisters died? I didn't even know you before. I only came to find you on the orders of my sect. You're not my son, so why should I fight to the death for you? Why should we, the younger generation, bear the grudges of the previous generation? But do you know that in places where you can't see, there are many people who are entangled with the cultivators of Myriad Devil Ridge just to prevent them from coming to find you? During this time, the number of declarations of war between sects has increased by several dozen times compared to before. What are we doing this for? What are they doing this for? Isn't it because they want you to live? So, hurry up and leave. Don't let my 2 junior brothers and junior sisters die in vain. Don't let those people who are secretly working for you die in vain." Lan Yuti said a bunch of nonsense. She thought that Lu Yi would listen to her, but who would have thought that Lu Yi would just sit there indifferently and look at her? "Are you done?" Lan Yuti was speechless for a while. Finally, she choked out, "This old lady really wants to beat you up." Lu Yi sighed and said, "Half a year ago, I was just a slave miner in Evil Moon Valley. I was rescued by Grand Heaven Alliance, and was guided by someone to join the Blue Blood sect. However, before the sect master could bring me back to the sect, I was intercepted halfway. The sect master was forced to send me to the Spirit Stream battlefield. I don't even know what the Blue Blood sect is like. These days, I only have one goal, and that is to go to the Blue Blood sect's encampment. As you said, why should we, the younger generation, bear the grudges of the previous generation? Including you, including me, we don't even know what happened to the previous generation. But I think that since I have already joined the sect, and have been branded with it, I naturally have to bear the grudges of the sect. This is something that no one can avoid. In the past 6 months on the Spirit Stream battlefield, although I have reached the 5th order, compared to this vast battlefield, what is it? How can I, Lu Yi, with my small body bear the weight of the game between the 2 camps? Why should they put me at the center of this battle? But since I am already involved in this dispute, I can't stay out of it. I also just found out that many people were secretly helping me, and many people died because of it. I don't want to say that their deaths have nothing to do with me. Whether it was because of the orders of the sect or because of my friendship with the Blue Blood sect, they were all helping me. I will remember this kindness in my heart." Lan Yuti looked at him quietly. Originally, she was quite resentful about the task given by her sect. After all, they didn't know Lu Yi before, but because of her sect master's order to protect him, 2 people died. There were also those who died in the wilderness. How pitiful and sad it was. But now, it seemed that the most pitiful and sad was this young boy in front of her. Yes, with only a trivial 5th order cultivation, he had become the center of the game between the 2 camps. So many Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators wanted to take his life, and many of them were masters from the sect's core. How much pressure did he have to bear? This was not the situation he wanted, but it had become a vortex of struggle. If it were her, she would have been unable to bear it long ago. "So, what do you want to say?" "So," Lu Yi smiled at her, "I want to live. I don't care what grudges the previous generation had, and I don't care why my sect is being targeted like this. Since there are so many people secretly helping me and dying because of me, then I want to live. You're right, I can't let those people die in vain. My cultivation is still low, so I don't have the qualifications to talk about revenge, but as long as I live, I will have the opportunity. Those people from Myriad Demon Ridge had better kill me before I return to the Blue Blood sect. Otherwise, one day, I will make all the forces from Myriad Demon Ridge who targeted me pay the price. Lan Yu Dai looked at him foolishly. Listening to his childish and irrational words, she finally blurted out, I'm afraid you're crazy. In the end, he was still a young man. Occasionally, he would say some hot-blooded and arrogant words. After interacting with Lu Yi for the past few days, Lan Yudi had thought that he was an introverted person. But now, she discovered that she was wrong. I won't leave you behind. Lu Ye's next words made Lan Yu Dai vomit blood. If I leave, I'm afraid you won't live long. Rest well tonight and we'll set off tomorrow morning. Lan Yu Dai looked at him angrily, but Lu Yi looked back at her calmly. After a while, Lan Yu Dai looked away, knowing that she couldn't persuade him. Suddenly, her face tightened. Did you change my clothes? Only now did she realize that her clothes had been changed. She was wearing a set of men's clothes, and judging from his body shape, it should belong to the young man in front of her. Moreover, her wounds had been properly treated. She didn't know what kind of medicine had been applied, but she still felt a numbing sensation. No. Lan Yu Dai's face instantly turned red. You saw everything? I said it wasn't me. Lu Yi defended himself. Lan Yu Dai's face became even redder. If it wasn't you, then did Da Bai change my clothes? Hoopa looked up at her, a little unhappy. Chapter 151. Before dawn, the two set out again. Lu Yi didn't know what method Lan Yu Dai used, but she seemed to have the ability to detect the nearby environment. Under her guidance, the two were able to avoid many potential dangers. This was because Lu Yi often felt the world energy fluctuations of cultivators fighting nearby, and those world energy fluctuations were obviously very powerful. Lu Yi understood that the cultivators from the inner circle had already rushed over and were confronting each other. One day later, under the guidance of Lan Yu Dai, Lu Yi entered a mountain valley. Lan Yu Dai, who was sitting in front of Lu Yi, fiddled with her battlefield imprint. Soon, a dozen people rushed over from a direction. This group seemed to have experienced many battles as many of them were injured. They're on the same side, don't worry, Lan Yu Dai quickly said when she noticed Lu Ye's nervousness. The group of people rushed over, but before they could get close, Lan Yudi raised her hand and shouted, Are you the senior brothers from the Big Dipper sect? The bearded man in the lead also showed his battlefield imprint to Lan Yu Dai and responded, Yes. Soon, the dozen people rushed over under the bearded man's lead. Lu Yi looked at this group. 2 were 7th order, 3 were 6th order, and the rest were 4th order or 5th order. Their overall strength was quite good. Lan Yu Dai jumped off the tiger's back and looked up at Lu Yi with an apologetic expression. I can only accompany you up to here. You'll have to walk the rest of the way by yourself. There will be others looking for you. A day ago, she had asked Lu Yi to leave her behind, but Lu Yi didn't agree. In desperation, she could only contact the nearby Union sect, which led to the current situation. Lu Yi didn't want to leave her behind because he was afraid that she would encounter an accident. Since the previous battle, Lan Yu Dai had become a little weak. If she encountered a strong enemy alone, she wouldn't be able to resist. Hearing her words, Lu Yi understood her plan and nodded. Understood. You're Lu Yi? The bearded man looked at Lu Yi on the tiger's back. Lu Yi nodded and met the dozen gazes opposite him. The bearded man grinned and said, Our cultivation is not high, so we can't be of much help. However, the people of the Myriad Demons Ridge can't bully us. We'll block the pursuers for you. You can go and live. The banner of the Jade Blood sect should not fall. Lu Yi looked at this group of people with a complicated expression. He had never seen them before and had never interacted with them. However, at this moment, they had all come for him. They were like this, the people of Mount Purple Cloud were like this, and the people who were fighting with the cultivators of Myriad Devil Ridge in unknown places were also like this. Lu Ye's thoughts churned. He suddenly realized that even though he was just a little fifth-order cultivator and had always been cultivating alone, he wasn't alone. Behind him stood the Blue Blood Sect and the colossal Grand Heaven Alliance. No matter what kind of grudges the previous generation had, no matter why they wanted to put the vortex of conflict on themselves, there would always be many people who died because of it. The Jade Blood Sect's Lu Yi was not only his name, but also his symbol. This symbol was enough for a group of people like the bearded man to entrust their lives to him after a few simple words. Live, I must live. There had never been a moment when his will to live was so strong. Lu Yi sat on the tiger's back and cupped his fists solemnly to the people below. If I don't die, I will definitely drink and chat with my senior brothers. Everyone returned the salute, and the bearded man grinned. Then we will wait for you. Lu Yi turned around and flew away with Hu Po. Soon, the sound of fighting could be heard behind him. Climbing up a nearby mountain, Lu Yi looked back and saw that the dozen people from Big Dipper Sect were besieged by many cultivators from Myriad Devil Ridge who were chasing after them. Many cultivators who heard the commotion gathered from all directions. In just a short moment, there was a chaotic battle of more than 50 to 60 people, and the number was still increasing. However, there were obviously more people from Myriad Devil Ridge. They surrounded the people from Grand Heaven Alliance in the middle, and the power of their spells was constantly released. Someone was knocked to the ground and dragged his seriously injured body towards the enemy. Before he died, he cut down a cultivator from Myriad Devil Ridge. Someone roared and rushed into the enemy group. He used some unknown method and exploded, making the enemy dizzy. He saw that the bearded man had been slashed several times, and blood splattered everywhere, but he did not retreat. He saw Lan Yuti dancing among the enemy group again, and her twin sabers turned into saber light that filled the sky. Hu Po paced restlessly. Lu Yi suppressed his urge to rush over and took a deep breath. He roared to the sky, Lu Yi of Jade Blood Sect is here. Lu Yi is here. Here. This earth-shaking roar reverberated in the valley continuously. It was accompanied by Hu Po's roar. Many cultivators from Myriad Devil Ridge, who were rushing to the battlefield, turned their heads and looked over, and they saw the figure of a young man riding a huge snow-white tiger on top of the mountain. Under the setting sun, the young man's figure was particularly eye-catching. Lu Yi is over there. Someone shouted. Go and kill him. Some cultivators from Myriad Devil Ridge withdrew from the battle and rushed toward Lu Yi. Even more people who had not joined the battle in time hurried over. Even some nearby cultivators from Myriad Devil Ridge heard the roar and turned around. Below the mountain valley, the pressure on Lan Yuti and the others immediately decreased. She retreated to her camp, her body covered in sticky blood. She looked in Lu Ye's direction and gritted her teeth. Bastard! The bearded man laughed. I suddenly feel that even if I die here, it will be worth it. By the time the Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators climbed up the mountain, Lu Yi had already run away. He was not stupid. How could he wait for death in place? He shouted mainly to reduce the pressure on Lan Yuti and the others. Otherwise, under such a siege, Lan Yuti and the others would be doomed. He didn't know how effective his actions were. Riding on Hu Po's back, Yang Kai looked back and saw figures constantly rising and falling in the sky. They were all seventh-order cultivators who had the ability to glide for a short period of time. He was relieved. With so many seventh-order cultivators running over, Lan Yuti and the others should not be in too much danger. It was not realistic for the pursuers to catch up to Lu Yi just by gliding. Compared to the second time he was chased by Dong Shai, Hu Po's speed had increased a bit. The blood lines on his scales were of great help to his body tempering. Therefore, Lu Yi wasn't worried about being caught by these people at all. What he was afraid of were the experts who came out of the core circle. Those fellows were all capable of flight. However, what he feared would happen. Not long after he started running, Lu Yi felt a sharp aura approaching him at an extremely fast speed. He hurriedly looked back and saw a streak of light flying over from behind. Judging from the speed of that person, it was most likely a ninth-order cultivator. "Hu-po, run!" Lu Yi hurriedly urged. Hu-po used all his strength, but he still could not get rid of the other party. The distance between them was constantly closing. At the same time, a familiar voice sounded, "Boy, you're dead." "Han Jiyu?" Lu Yi immediately recognized the voice. It was Tai Luosek's Han Jiyu. It was not surprising. Xie Jin had sent him a message before, indicating that the news had already reached Blue Feather Mountain. If Blue Feather Mountain could get the news, Tai Luosek could too. During the Dragon Spring Festival, Tai Luosek had suffered many casualties because of Lu Yi. In the Central Peak Hall, Han Jiyu did not hide her hostility and murderous intent towards Lu Yi. After the Dragon Spring body tempering, Tang Wu of Blue Feather Mountain personally sent Lu Yi to peaceful E-City to prevent Han Jiyu from killing him. As a result, even if Han Jiyu wanted to kill him, she would not know where to find him. As a ninth-order cultivator, she would not keep an eye on Lu Yi all the time. However, when all kinds of news about Lu Yi spread uncontrollably, Han Jiyu immediately realized that her opportunity had come. After the Dragon Spring Festival's defeat, she was scolded by the old guys in her sect. Her hatred for Lu Yi deepened. After learning that this guy was a disciple of Blue Blood sect, she immediately set off from Tai Luosek's station. Just as she was about to arrive, she heard Lu Yi shout, "Blue Blood sect's Lu Yi is here." This was really like someone giving her a pillow when she was sleepy. She immediately chased after him. In midair, Han Jiyu looked down at the fleeing figure below with a smile on her face. She raised her jade white hand and pinched a feather-like thing between her fingers. Judging from the light on the feather, it was a spirit artifact. She was about to throw this spirit artifact out when a loud explosion suddenly came from a mountain below. Then, a figure shot up into the sky like an arrow and hit her flying spirit artifact. Han Jiyu's face changed and she quickly dodged, but she was still knocked down by the powerful impact. A figure surrounded by heat waves appeared diagonally above her. That person punched out. "Get down!" The powerful attack came and Han Jiyu was caught off guard. She could not dodge it and hurriedly pushed her spirit energy barrier to block the blow, but her body was still knocked down diagonally by the punch. With a bang, she hit the ground and got up with a dirty face. She screamed like a madwoman, "Tang Wu, this old lady will never forgive you. You speak as if we were friends in the past." Tang Wu sneered and rushed towards Han Jiyu with his fist raised. "Enough nonsense, eat my fist first." One was a body cultivator and the other was a Dharma cultivator. Both of them were ninth-order cultivators and were old rivals. They immediately fought fiercely. However, Tang Wu was stronger than Han Jiyu to begin with. Coupled with the fact that he had the upper hand, Han Jiyu was soon beaten into a daze. Her hair was disheveled, and she cried out, "Green Feather Mountain and the Blue Blood sect have no relationship." Tang Wu snorted coldly, "This old man is not here for the Blue Blood sect." Han Jiyu immediately understood that this meat barbarian was not here for the Blue Blood sect, but for her. In this game between the two camps, some were here because of the friendship between the previous generation and the Blue Blood sect, some were here because of personal grievances, and some were here to hone themselves. Mobile users, please browse. Chapter 152. While Tang Wu and Han Jiyu, this pair of old enemies, were fighting, the hidden 8th Order and 9th Order cultivators appeared one after another. Lu Yi didn't know when so many masters had been hiding around him. Every time an 8th or 9th Order cultivator from Myriad Demon Ridge jumped out, there would always be a cultivator from Grand Heaven Alliance to fight him. As he moved forward, one battle after another appeared behind him. In these battles, the cultivators of the two factions fought back and forth, and they were locked in a fierce battle. These people had all rushed over from the inner circle. They might have been old rivals or had never met before, but because of their opposing camps and different standpoints, they naturally regarded each other as enemies. This was a feast for the strong. In the spirit stream battlefield, although the two camps were naturally opposed and constantly attacked each other, large and small battles would erupt every day. Ever since that behemoth had fallen, it had been many years since such a chaotic battle had erupted that swept over the entire battlefield. The three words blue blood sect deeply stimulated the nerves of the older generation of myriad Demon Ridge cultivators. They couldn't come to the spirit stream battlefield at will, so they had all given their disciples a death order. No matter what, that blue blood sect disciple named Lu Yi had to die. No matter what, the blue blood sect had to be eliminated in 2 months. Coupled with the generous rewards offered by the various sects of the myriad Devil Ridge, countless cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge were rushing towards Lu Yi. As long as they could kill Lu Yi, they would have an endless supply of cultivation resources. After the battle ended, Lu Yi stood in the messy battlefield, panting heavily. Blood dripped from the long saber in his hand. He stuffed a healing pill into his mouth, and with Yi's help, he simply bandaged his wounds. Then, he flipped onto the tiger's back and continued forward. The masters who rushed over from the inner circle were restraining each other, so Lu Yi didn't encounter any powerful enemies along the way. This was his luck, and also the efforts of the entire Grand Heaven Alliance. But without Lan Yu Dai's methods, he would inevitably encounter some myriad Demon Ridge cultivators, and some battles would be inevitable. If the enemy was a 7th-order cultivator, he would escape on Hu Po. If there weren't a 7th-order cultivator, he would charge forward and kill them. Lu Yi could no longer remember how many waves of myriad Devil Ridge cultivators he had killed. Those fellows' cultivation bases were uneven, and there were all sorts of monsters among them. He and Hu Po were already very tired, but they didn't dare to stop and rest because their current whereabouts had been completely exposed. Once they stopped, it was possible that they would be surrounded, and at that time, it would be impossible for them to escape. He didn't know if he could survive, but he wouldn't give up so easily. The impurities in his spiritual power were very obvious and were about to affect his combat effectiveness. However, if he wanted to recover quickly, he had to take a spirit pill. He had no other choice. Qiao Mountain, that stretched for thousands of miles in the Force Province of the world of the 9 provinces, was originally the territory of a huge monster. It was the place where the most eye-catching flag of the Haotian Alliance stood. However, ever since that incident happened a few decades ago, the giant organization gradually declined. Today, the Haotian Alliance, which was once the pride and symbol of the Haotian Alliance, had been reduced to a 9th-rank clan. There was a risk that the Haotian Alliance would be eliminated at any time. No one had cleaned the place for decades. The buildings on the spirit peaks were dilapidated, and the bustling and prosperous days of the past had long turned into dead silence. The entire Qiao Mountain gave people the feeling that it was an old man with 1 foot in the grave that could decay at any time. Only the main hall on the central peak was intact. In front of the main hall, the flag of the Jade Blood Sect was fluttering. It was a blood-red flag that was dyed red by the blood of the Jade Blood Sect's disciples over the years. The flag was embroidered with a blazing golden flame, as if it wanted to burn all the demons and monsters in the world. A few decades ago, the myriad Devil Ridge retreated wherever this flag with a red background fluttered. However, today, who among the younger generation still recognize this flag? Even for those cultivators who were slightly older, who would still remember this flag. This was the sorrow of the era. In the main hall, the Jade Blood Sect's sect master, Tang Yifeng, sat on a chair with a weary expression. Compared to half a year ago, the sect master seemed to have aged by a few decades. In front of him, a petite woman knelt and kowtowed, begging, "Sect master, please save Junior brother." The sect master said bitterly, "Whether he lives or dies depends on his own fortune. This old man is powerless. As a divine sea realm cultivator, he couldn't even enter the spirit stream battlefield. Even if he knew that Lu Yi was in a critical situation, he couldn't help much. Junior brother doesn't know anything. He only encountered this ordeal because he joined the Jade Blood sect. It was the sect master who took him in. If I don't save him, it would be too unfair to him." The sect master smiled bitterly. How could this old man not know? But in this situation, how do you expect this old man to intervene? The woman said, "I've inquired about Junior brother's current location. It's not far from the Azure Sea Mountains encampment. Back then, when the Azure Sea Mountain was in danger of being destroyed, it was my Jade Blood sect that helped them resolve the crisis. If the sect master can restore the alliance contract with the Azure Sea Mountain, then Junior brother only needs to rush to the Azure Sea Mountains encampment and borrow the Tianji pillar there to return to the 9 provinces. This way, he will be able to escape." When the Jade Blood sect was at its peak, it had an alliance contract with many sects in the 9 provinces. However, after that incident, many sects had cut off contact with the Jade Blood sect. In the past few decades, the sect master had also rescinded all the alliance contracts and completely cut off contact with other sections. If 2 sects wanted to establish an alliance contract, the sect masters of the 2 sects would need to use the sect master's seal as the foundation and invite the Tianji pillar to bear witness. This way they could become an alliance and help each other in times of need. With an alliance contract, the disciples of the 2 sects could borrow the Tianji pillar of the other sect to do all kinds of things. For example, they could spend a certain amount of contribution points to teleport between the 2 sections. The large and small sects in the 9 provinces had very close relationships with each other. The alliance contracts were what maintained this relationship. The large sects in the core region had an alliance contract with many small and medium-sized sections. This was because when their disciples' cultivation was not high, they would need to go to the outer and inner regions of the battlefield to train. Naturally, it was more convenient to stay in the alliance's encampment. The Azure Sea Mountain that the woman spoke of was a 7th-rank force. It was also a force in the War Province. It had once been on good terms with the Jade Blood sect, and it could even be said that the Azure Sea Mountain's rise was due to the Jade Blood sect's support. When the Jade Blood sect was at its peak, the Azure Sea Mountain was a 9th-rank force that had just been established. There were only a few Cloud River tier cultivators in the sect, but now there were even a few true Lake tier cultivators in the Azure Sea Mountain. This time, there was even hope for them to reach the 6th rank. As long as the Jade Blood sect could establish an alliance contract with the Azure Sea Mountain, then Lu Yi would be able to head to the encampment of the Azure Sea Mountain at the Spirit Stream battlefield. As long as he entered the encampment, he would be able to borrow the Tianji pillar there to return to the War Province. At that time, the crisis would naturally be resolved. It could be said that this was the only way for Lu Yi to escape, because he was currently too far away from the encampment of the Jade Blood sect. On the way, even if he had the help of many cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance, it would be impossible for him to reach the encampment safely. If we do this, the Azure Sea Mountain will definitely become the target of public criticism. If something happens to the Azure Sea Mountain, then wouldn't the Jade Blood sect be implicated? How would that be fair to the Azure Sea Mountain? How could the sect master not have thought of the method that the woman spoke of? But if they really did this, once the news spread, no, the news would definitely spread. At that time, the encampment of the Azure Sea Mountain would become the focus of the battle between the 2 great camps. Even if it was a 7th-rank sect, it would still be in danger of being destroyed. It was precisely because of this consideration that the sect master couldn't do this. His own disciples were people, but the disciples of other sects were also people. The woman was still kneeling on the ground, her tone sorrowful. The agreement to form an alliance with the Azure Sea Mountain will indeed put them in danger, but if we leave them alone, Junior brother will undoubtedly die. How can there be such a thing as fairness in this world? Junior brother, a 5th-order cultivator, has become a chess piece in the battle between 2 great camps. This is the legacy of the previous generation, so why should Junior brother bear the responsibility? How can he bear the responsibility? Originally, it was fine if the sect was gone, and I had already accepted this outcome over the past few decades. However, you suddenly took in a little junior brother. When I heard this news, I was very happy because after so many years, this day has finally come. Disciple has never seen him and doesn't know what kind of person he is, but since he was accepted by you, then he is my junior brother. Disciple will not allow him to die in front of me. As she spoke, she slowly straightened up, a strange light flashing in her eyes. The sect master was shocked. Looking at the female disciple in front of him, he suddenly had a bad feeling. Old man, you accepted him. If you don't want to save him, then I will. She suddenly seemed to have changed into a different person as she stepped out, saying as she walked, "When junior brother and I die together, you will be alone for the rest of your life. In the future, there will be no one to send you off." Shui Yuan. The sect master was a little flustered because he knew what was going to happen next. This disciple of his was a ninth-order true lake realm cultivator, and she was going to force her way into the spirit stream battlefield. True lake realm cultivators naturally couldn't appear in the spirit stream battlefield. If they wanted to force their way in, not only would they have to pay a large amount of merit points, even if they did, their cultivation would be greatly suppressed. At most, they would only be able to use spirit stream realm technique. True lake realm cultivators could force their way into the spirit stream battlefield, but at the sect master's level, there was no way. Therefore, even if those powerful cultivators could force their way into the spirit stream battlefield, most people wouldn't choose to do so. If they were careless and were killed by those juniors, wouldn't that be worth it? The woman called Shui Yuan was obviously going to throw caution to the wind. In a flash, the sect master stood in front of Shui Yuan and said in a deep voice, "You can't go." Shui Yuan stared at him. Her small body had great determination, and the strange light in her eyes became stronger as she said angrily, "I want to go. Hurry up and get out of the way with your old arms and legs. It won't look good if I throw you to the ground." The sect master was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. "You disrespectful traitor! I should have kicked you out long ago. Just like how you kicked those junior brothers out of the door?" The atmosphere suddenly turned silent, and the sect master's expression seemed to have aged a few decades. After a while, the sect master sighed, "Fine, I'll throw away this old face and make a trip to Azure Cliff Mountain." Chapter 153. Half a day later, at the main peak of Azure Sea Mountain, the bell rang 9 times and the mountain gate opened. Led by Azure Sea Mountain's sect master, Meng Danqing, a group of Azure Sea Mountain elders, protectors, and deacons stood on both sides, waiting respectfully. When the sect master appeared with the woman called Shui Yuan, everyone saluted. Without beating around the bush, Meng Danqing went straight to the point. "Old Tang, everything is ready. Please come in." The sect master nodded with a complicated expression. "Thank you for your hard work." Meng Danqing shook his head with a smile. "Azure Sea Mountain has been waiting for this day." After a short while, the mysteries of the heavens surged. Under the witness of the mysteries of the heavens, the headmasters of the two great sects entered into an alliance. Even though Mount Azure Cliff had done everything in its power to suppress this news, under the watchful eyes of some people, this news still uncontrollably spread outwards. In a hidden place in the spirit stream battlefield, Lu Yi sat cross-legged and took a pill to recover. Hupa lay beside him, his blood-covered belly rising and falling rapidly. Although he was tired, he was still eating beast meat in big mouthfuls, because he knew that only when he was full would he have the strength to escape. Without resting for too long, Lu Yi rode Hupu on the road again. However, they hadn't walked far when a streak of light hovering in midair suddenly flew down. Before it even got close, it took the initiative to reveal its battlefield imprint to Lu Yi. It was a cultivator from the Grand Heaven Alliance. "Come up." That person stopped his flying spirit artifact in front of Lu Yi. Lu Yi hesitated. Since he separated from Lan Yu Dai, He had been supported by several cultivators from Grand Heaven Alliance. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to reach here with his current cultivation. However, the cultivators who had come to pick him up could not accompany him for too long. Along the way, they would be obstructed and intercepted by the myriad Devil Ridge. Every time this happened, those cultivators would have to go meet the enemy, and Lu Yi would once again travel alone. Previously, a Ninth Order cultivator had used a flight-type spirit artifact to trip Lu Yi. It had to be said that the spirit artifact was very fast, but it didn't take long for it to be discovered by the people of Myriad Demon Ridge and was almost shot down. If they really fell from that height, that person wouldn't die, but Lu Yi and Hu Pa definitely wouldn't. So, when he heard that someone wanted him to go up, Lu Yi was a little traumatized. Using a flying spirit artifact was indeed fast, but it was also easy to be targeted. But he didn't have any other choice, so he could only brace himself and step onto the flying spirit artifact with Hu Pa. That person formed a hand seal and shouted, "Rise!" The small boat-like flying spirit tool rose into the air. This person was smart and didn't fly too high. This way, even if he was hit, his life wouldn't be in danger. While remaining vigilant of his surroundings, he hurriedly said to Lu Yi, "Blue Blood Sect has already signed an alliance agreement with Azure Sea Mountain, so you don't need to head to Blue Blood Sect's encampment right now. As long as you can rush to Azure Sea Mountain's encampment, you will be safe." Songmin Mountain? Songmin Mountain. Lu Yi hurriedly took out a map to examine it. He didn't know what an alliance contract was, but from the information revealed by the other party, it was likely the key to his escape. Very soon, he found the location of Songmin Mountain's encampment. It was a rank 7 sect, located at the border between the outer circle and the inner circle. Although it wasn't too far from here, it definitely wasn't close either. However, it was much closer than going to the Blue Blood Sect station. He immediately understood that this should be the result of the sect master's efforts. Otherwise, there was no reason for the Blue Blood Sect to sign an alliance agreement with Azure Sea Mountain at such a crucial time. Several myriad Devil Ridge forces near Azure Sea Mountain have already declared war on Azure Sea Mountain. Remember, the closer you get to Azure Sea Mountain, the more dangerous it is. Before you reach Azure Sea Mountain, you must not be careless. Understood. Lu Yi nodded heavily and turned his head to look back. There were already myriad Devil Ridge cultivators who had discovered his tracks and were chasing after him. However, there were also people from Grand Heaven Alliance blocking his path. You can't escape. Hurry in the direction of Azure Sea Mountain. There will be people ahead to receive you. As the person spoke, he pressed down on the flying light. After Lu Yi and Hu Pa jumped down, he immediately turned around and met the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators who were chasing after him. In an instant, the two flying lights collided and spiritual energy buzzed. Lu Yi didn't turn his head to look. In a battle between cultivators of this level, he couldn't help at all. He rode on Hu Po's back and rushed towards Azure Sea Mountain at full speed. The Spirit Stream battlefield became even more lively. The news of the alliance agreement between the Blue Blood Sect and Azure Sea Mountain had already spread, and the reason for this was self-evident. As a result, Azure Sea Mountain had also become the center of the battle between the two camps. Countless cultivators from both camps were gathering in this direction from all directions, and the area within a 1,000-kilometer radius of Azure Sea Mountain had already become a complete mess. Although Azure Sea Mountain had already called back all of its disciples, they still couldn't fight back against the successive declarations of war from the nearby sects. Currently, many disciples of Azure Sea Mountain had no choice but to hole up in their sect's defensive formation. Even so, they couldn't be at peace. Many myriad Devil Ridge cultivators gathered outside Azure Sea Mountain and constantly attacked the formation. They looked like they wanted to take over Azure Sea Mountain's base. After receiving the news, many cultivators from Grand Heaven Alliance also began to gather at Azure Sea Mountain's base. They had to protect Azure Sea Mountain no matter what. Once Azure Sea Mountain's base was breached, they would completely lose the battle between the factions. In just a short day, the area around Azure Sea Mountain had turned into a mincemeat. Countless cultivators had died here. News that made Grand Heaven Alliance feel even more despair came. Many cultivators from the Sacred Flame sect had rushed over. They gathered a large number of myriad Devil Ridge cultivators and set up layers of defenses between Lu Yi and Azure Sea Mountain's base. Although the Sacred Flame sect was only a fourth-rank sect, it had been a first-rank sect a few decades ago. The reason why it had fallen in rank was all thanks to the Jade Blood sect. In that era, it was not only the Sacred Flame sect that had fallen in rank due to the Jade Blood sect. It was the same for Hundred Refinements Valley and several other sects that Feng Yuechan had blocked at the gate of their base. Their enmity with the Blue Blood sect was far greater than the other sections. In the era when the Blue Blood sect was glorious and powerful, they hid in the shadows and trembled, not daring to show their faces. However, after a few decades, the Blue Blood sect had completely declined. As long as they killed Lu Yi, the Blue Blood sect would be removed from the next sect ranking assessment. It could be said that the sects that had suffered greatly at the hands of the Blue Blood sect had been waiting for this day to come. How could they allow Lu Yi to enter Azure Sea Mountain's base so easily? This was also the reason why the sect master was unwilling to easily sign an alliance contract with Azure Sea Mountain. He knew that this would definitely push Azure Sea Mountain into the heart of the struggle. Even though Azure Sea Mountain was now a 7th-rank sect, they might not be able to escape unscathed from the confrontation between the two factions. 9 states, Azure Sea Mountain's main hall. In front of the Pillar of Heaven's Secrets, Shui Yuan raised her hand and pressed it. Meng Donqing's expression was solemn. "Senior sister, you must be careful." Shui Yuan smiled. "We can't just rely on you for the Blue Blood sect's matters." The sect master stood to the side and also warned in a serious voice. "If the matter is impossible, don't try to be brave." "Yes." Shui Yuan respectfully responded and activated the battlefield imprint. In the next moment, her figure blurred and quickly disappeared. Spirit Stream Battlefield, Azure Sea Mountain's base. Layers of ripples continuously appeared on the defensive array. Many cultivators of Azure Sea Mountain were running around in panic. Although they were trying their best to maintain the array, there were too many cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge who had come to attack the base this time. There was no lack of experts who had come from the core region. Even though the guardian of this place had already pushed the defensive array's power to the limit, the strength of the array was still rapidly weakening. "How much longer can it last?" the guardian asked in a serious voice. "Based on the current situation, the array will be broken in less than 4 hours, the deputy replied. 4 hours? The guardian snorted. "This is not good. Pass down the order. Everyone is to prepare for a battle to the death." The deputy's expression changed. "Senior brother. In this situation, shouldn't they give up on the base and return to the 9 states before the array was broken? If they fought a battle to the death here, who knew how many of their fellow sect members would die here? If things went wrong, Azure Sea Mountain would be wiped out." The guardian said indifferently, "This is an order from the sect master himself. I don't care what relationship the previous generation has with the Jade Blood sect, but since it is an order from the sect master, we must obey. You will personally guard the divine pillar. If anyone dares to run away, kill them without mercy." The deputy clenched his teeth. "Yes." However, before the deputy could turn around and head to the divine pillar, a strange movement suddenly came from the defensive array. The guardian frowned. "Who opened the array?" The movement just now was clearly caused when the array was opened. The two of them flashed out of the main hall together. When they looked up, the scene that they saw stunned them. They saw a black stream of light shuttling back and forth outside the array. As the black stream of light shuttled back and forth, the cultivators of myriad Devil Ridge screamed and fell from the sky. The black stream of light was like a wind of death. Wherever it blew, the aura of death would spread. Even those experts from the core region who had cultivated heaven-grade cultivation techniques could not block the killing of this black stream of light. Who is this? The Guardian was stunned. His sect did not have such a ferocious person. The deputy was also shocked. He wondered if it was the Spirit Stream sect's top disciple called Feng Yuechan. However, Feng Yuechan was a Dharma cultivator and did not match this person. In a short period of time, more than 10 cultivators from Myriad Devil Ridge had been killed. These people were all experts from the core region who had rushed over. In an instant, the pressure on the Azure Sea Mountains defensive array was greatly reduced. The faint purple power of lightning grew near the black stream of light. The Guardian immediately understood. Which senior forced his way in? Only cultivators at the Spirit Stream realm could safely enter the Spirit Stream battlefield. Although cultivators above the Spirit Stream realm could pay a huge price to force their way in, their strength would be suppressed to the Spirit Stream realm. They could only use Spirit Stream realm technique. In addition, if such a person killed someone on the Spirit Stream battlefield, the omnipresent Divine Pillar would punish them. The faint purple power of lightning was the symbol of this punishment. The more people killed, the stronger the power of lightning. Under this accumulation, there would eventually be a moment when the intruder would not be able to hold on and die under the bombardment of the purple lightning. Chapter 154. Following the Black Streak of Light's massacre, the pressure on Tsangmin Mountain's side was greatly reduced. The Guardian of Tsangmin Mountain immediately saw an opportunity and shouted, "Open the formation, kill the enemy!" They couldn't just take a beating and not fight back. Now was the best time to counterattack. The formation opened and the cultivators of Tsangmin Mountain, who were full of resentment, charged out. At the same time, the cultivators of Grand Heaven Alliance, who were watching the situation nearby, also swarmed over. With a pincer attack, they only took half a day to beat back the cultivators of Myriad Devil Ridge, who came to attack Tsangmin Mountain's encampment. After receiving support from Tsangmin Mountain, the cultivators of Grand Heaven Alliance all entered Tsangmin Mountain's encampment. The defensive formation was reactivated and the encampment's defensive strength increased greatly. This way, if Myriad Devil Ridge came to attack again, Tsangmin Mountain would have the power to resist. Not long after the battle began, the black stream of light, wrapped in the purple lightning energy, quickly disappeared into the distance. Until now, the two guardians of Tsangmin Mountain still didn't know who had come. After a series of inquiries, they finally received an answer. "It's actually her?" The guardian had a dumbfounded expression. "But, isn't she a medical cultivator?" He remembered that when he was seriously injured a few years ago, the sect master brought him to Jade Blood Sect in a hurry to find this person to treat his injuries. This martial ant's healing methods were extremely impressive. She only needed 3 days to recover from that kind of injury. It was said that in the entire cultivation world of the War Province, her medical skills could be ranked among the top. She had saved countless people with her medical skills that could bring the dead back to life. He was truly a bit confused. Within the black streak of light, purple lightning constantly flickered beside the lithe figure, turning into countless tiny lightning whips that whipped her body. Although she had already tried her best to control the number of people she killed, the punishment from heaven was no joke. The purple lightning was extremely destructive and corrosive. Ordinary cultivators would be in so much pain that they wished they were dead if they came into contact with it. However, at this moment, she was wrapped in lightning as if nothing had happened. There wasn't the slightest bit of pain on her face. She looked forward and flew with all her strength. She had to be faster, faster! An unknown distance in front of her, Lu Yi was riding on Hupu and fleeing in a sorry state. Behind her, a figure soared into the air and chased after her. While in the air, this person pointed a finger in Lu Ye's direction. The other party's demeanor was relaxed, as if he was crushing an ant. A huge finger of spiritual energy appeared above Lu Ye's head and quickly pressed down. He was the ant being crushed. Hoopa moved left and right, but he was still unable to avoid the other party's attack range. When the spirit energy finger pressed down, Lu Yi roared and activated the defensive spirit tattoo, placing it above his head. Even though he kept channeling his spirit energy to maintain this defensive spiritual rune, he still couldn't withstand the other party's attack. With a cracking sound, the defensive rune shattered. Lu Yi instantly felt as if he was being pressed down by a mountain. Beneath him, Hoopa roared and fell to his knees with a plop. Unable to breathe, Lu Ye's chest felt heavy. Just as Lu Yi thought that he was going to die, he suddenly heard the clanging of a sword, followed by a furious roar. North Mystic Sword Sex Lunatic Jian? The pressure on his head immediately disappeared. Lu Yi turned his head and saw that a man in green had appeared beside him. He couldn't see the man's face clearly because his back was facing Lu Yi and he was holding a long sword. Is the North Mystic Sword Sect also going to interfere? The Wanmo Ridge cultivator who was chasing after Lu Yi shouted angrily. His voice clearly contained some fear. Let's go. The man in green was clearly not a talkative person. He said softly to Lu Yi. Thank you, senior brother. Lu Yi thanked him and hurriedly fled. If he remembered correctly, the North Mystic Sword Sect was one of the top 10 first-grade sects in the War Province. Yu Shaodai had told him about this before. He didn't run far before he heard the sounds of an intense battle behind him. The sound of swords whistling through the air was endless. Lu Ye's investigation was very thorough. He was getting closer and closer to the Tsangming Mountains encampment. However, the further he went, the greater the resistance he encountered. Lu Yi didn't know if he could successfully reach the Tsangming Mountains encampment, but he had no other choice. Even if there was a mountain of blades and a sea of flames in front of him, he could only brace himself and charge forward. Fortunately, Grand Heaven Alliance was very strong. Every time a master appeared that Lu Yi couldn't resist, there would always be someone from Grand Heaven Alliance to take over and resist. Less than half a day later, Lu Yi was forced to stop at the top of a mountain. This mountain was very strange, as if someone had cut it in half from the middle. The cut was very smooth and the top of the mountain was barren. There was no vegetation, and all the trees and flowers only grew to the bottom of the mountain. It was as if there was an invisible boundary there, sealing off all life. On the map, this place was marked as the Golden Peak. This was a mountain with a name. The number of such mountains in the wilderness was incalculable. Generally, they didn't have a special name. At most, they would be marked with the name of an entire mountain range. For example, Blue Cloud Mountain, where Lu Yi first arrived, actually had many peaks. Even the 100 Peaks mountain he passed by was like this. In comparison, this extremely special mountain seemed a little unusual. It was rumored that the terrain here was created by a peerless master who wielded a saber, but the strongest cultivators in the entire Spirit Stream battlefield were those who cultivated 9th Order Heaven-grade secret arts. Even if these people were 10 times stronger, it would still be impossible for them to create such a spectacular scenery. How the Golden Peak was formed had always been a mystery. At this moment, more than a dozen cultivators from Grand Heaven Alliance surrounded Lu Yi in the middle, while Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators gathered from all directions. They had reached a dead end and there was no way to escape. Although the cultivators from Grand Heaven Alliance weren't weak, they were outnumbered. After the Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators surrounded this place, they weren't in a hurry to attack. Instead, they were constantly sending out messages. As the message spread, the news that Lu Yi of the Blue Blood sect was trapped in the Golden Peak spread. Cultivators from the 2 camps nearby rushed over. Halfway there, a battle broke out. Everyone, we can't wait any longer. If we wait any longer, I'm afraid no one will be able to escape, a burly body cultivator shouted. Then let's kill our way out. Someone echoed. It's not difficult to just kill our way out, but I'm afraid it won't be possible to protect this little friend from the Blue Blood sect. Then what should we do? Wait for death here? We can't just wait for death. Before we die, we must drag a few people with us. Boy, are you afraid of death? Someone asked Lu Yi. Yes. The person who asked the question was at a loss for words. He didn't know how to respond to Lu Yi. But I don't want to wait for death here. Lu Yi slowly drew his saber. Lu Yi is very grateful for the protection of all my senior brothers today. Myriad Demon's Ridge is targeting me. Senior brothers, please break out. I will try my best to keep up. If I can't, please don't worry about my life or death. The burly body cultivator slapped the back of Lu Ye's head and said, You're just a fifth-order cultivator. What are you trying to do? Before we die, it's not your turn to die. He took a deep breath, and his originally tall and sturdy body suddenly expanded by a size. His muscles were clearly defined, and his chi and blood were boiling. Heat waves rolled around him, and 2 streams of hot air came out of his nostrils. We're about to break out of the encirclement, follow closely. Someone exhorted Lu Yi, don't die. If you die, Myriad Demon's Ridge will win this battle. If that happens, I won't be able to die in peace. This dispute had continued to this day. Many Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators were too lazy to care about the grievances of the previous generation. In their minds, they simply couldn't let Myriad Demon's Ridge win. As for the price they had to pay, how many people died on the Spirit Stream battlefield every day? Even without this conflict, Grand Heaven Alliance and Myriad Demon's Ridge would still be fighting each other every day. Kill! With a roar, everyone broke out in a direction under the lead of the body cultivator. In that direction, many Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators immediately retreated. At the same time, a series of spell techniques were launched from that direction. The burly body cultivator took the spell techniques head-on and charged forward like a mad bull. Many Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators behind him used various methods to break out of the encirclement. However, they didn't succeed in breaking out this time because they didn't only have to face the pressure from the front, but also from other directions. After a while, the group of people who had rushed out more than 100 feet were suppressed again. Almost all of them were injured, but Lu Yi, who was surrounded in the middle, was unharmed. Again, the body cultivator roared and broke out in another direction. In that direction, a group of Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators was charging over. As long as he could meet up with them, there was a high chance that he could escape. However, as time passed, more and more Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators gathered. The group of Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators who were charging over was also separated and fought on their own. Lu Yi and the others were suppressed on the spot and couldn't move. There were originally more than a dozen people, but now there were less than 10 left. Raging flames began to burn. It was a spell cast by a few Dharma cultivators standing in midair. Although the Dharma cultivators were dressed differently, they all had a blazing flame on their forehead. It was obvious that they were from the same faction. As they cast their spells, fire dragons swooped down from the sky, heading straight for the body cultivator in the lead. Although the body cultivator tried his best to resist, he was still burned black and blue all over. Everyone's eyes were filled with despair. If the body cultivator was seriously injured, then they had no hope of breaking out. The fire dragons rose again, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Those spell cultivators obviously wanted to finish off the body cultivator completely. Without the body cultivator in front of them, Lu Yi and the others were fish on the chopping board. What do you want to do to my junior brother? At this moment of crisis, a repressed and angry voice suddenly rang out. Even in this noisy battlefield, it was still clearly heard by everyone. When the first 2 words were uttered, the voice was still quite far away. However, when the last word was uttered, the person was already in front of them. A black stream of light rushed forward, wrapped in light purple lightning power, and directly rushed in front of the spell cultivator who cast the fire dragon spell. Its speed was beyond imagination. The spell cultivator's expression changed. He hurriedly changed his direction and shot a fire dragon at the person who came. Chapter 155. With a boom, the newcomer did not dodge, and forcibly smashed the fire dragon into sparks that filled the sky. There was a faint flash of black light, and the body of the spell cultivator standing in midair swayed slightly. Blood spurted out from his neck, and he fell down head first. The black streak of light wrapped in lightning charged into the battlefield. Wherever it passed, miserable screams rang out and severed limbs and flesh flew through the air. The chaotic and bloody battlefield instantly turned into a purgatory. In the crowd, Lu Yi stared at the dancing black streak of light. Although he did not know who it was and could not see its movements, the black streak of light gave him a very familiar feeling. It was a kind of familiarity that did not make sense. Lu Yi looked down at his own battlefield imprint and felt a slight warmth coming from it. It seemed to be from the same source as the black streak of light. Was this someone from the Jade Blood sect? The Jade Blood sect still had disciples? He did not know the exact situation of the Jade Blood sect, but from what he knew, he had always thought that the sect had not accepted any disciples for 30 years and was about to be expelled from the sect. But now it seemed that was not the case. The Jade Blood sect still had disciples, at least one. "Ignore her, kill Lu Yi," someone in the crowd shouted. As soon as the voice fell, the black streak of light had already arrived in front of him, and his head flew into the air. A series of techniques fell from the sky, most of them fire-type, especially the ferocious fire dragons. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws, causing the air to distort. The black streak of light wrapped in purple lightning flashed in front of Lu Yi and the others. It raised its hand and grabbed a green leaf. The leaf immediately enlarged and blocked everyone's heads. Hong hong hong. The techniques fell one after another, but they could not break through the leaf's protection. Lu Yi stared blankly at the figure in front of him. This woman was extremely tall, and she wore clothes that didn't fit her well, outlining her graceful figure. The spiritual energy around her surged wildly along with the purple lightning. She resisted the attacks of the spells and smiled at Lu Yi. "Little junior brother? I am your eldest senior sister, Wei Yang." In that instant the world lost its color. Lu Yi hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, eldest senior sister." His eldest senior sister was so fierce? Furthermore, she was so beautiful and had such a great figure. "I'm late, mainly because the old man at home is too stubborn." "Old man?" Lu Yi froze for a moment before realizing that she was talking about the sect leader. She didn't dare to reply. At the same time, the cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance, who were separated outside, also charged in. It was Wei Yang who opened a gap for them. Although she had just arrived, she could see the situation clearly at a glance and knew that it was unrealistic to try to save Lu Yi on her own. If she wanted to protect Lu Yi, she would have to borrow the strength of others. This was the reason why she let the cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance in as soon as possible. Only with more people could they protect Lu Yi. In the blink of an eye, the number of cultivators gathered around Lu Yi increased to over 100 people. These people huddled together while resisting the attacks from all directions. Although there was no need to worry for a while, they would eventually run out of energy. "Everyone, protect my junior brother." Wei Yang suddenly opened her mouth and said. Immediately, many people responded at once, "We'll follow senior's orders." Their attitudes were extremely enthusiastic. Wei Yang charged forward again, and her tall figure once again turned into a black streak of light. The cultivators of the myriad Devil Ridge, who were still casting spells in the air, panicked when they saw this. They wanted to scatter as if they were avoiding snakes or scorpions, but anyone who was targeted by her wouldn't last more than 3 breaths of time. A figure screamed as he fell from the sky, followed by a second, a third. The black streak of light only charged back and forth a few times before there was not a single person left in the air. Those who were lucky enough to survive all obediently landed on the ground. There was nothing they could do. Wei Yang's attitude was very clear. She would kill anyone who dared to stand in the air. When Wei Yong returned, the noisy battlefield suddenly quieted down, and all the spiritual energy fluctuations calmed down. It was unknown when Wei Yong had grabbed a huge war scythe, and a pitch-black aura constantly drifted out from the war scythe, giving people an extremely ominous feeling. "If you don't want to die, scram," Wei Yong said calmly. Wherever her gaze landed, the cultivators of the myriad Devil Ridge all retreated. However, one person stood out. This person had a blazing symbol on his forehead that seemed to be burning. He looked at Wei Yong and said, "It is an honor for a fight between us juniors to attract the attention of an expert like Senior. However, Senior has forcefully entered the spirit stream battlefield and killed so many people. The taste of the soul extinguishing divine lightning must not be good, right? Now that the divine lightning is dark purple, how many more people can Senior kill?" Wei Yong turned her head and her figure suddenly turned into an afterimage as she pounced in front of that person. She raised her hand and tapped on that person's chest. It was unknown what technique she used, but that person's body suddenly stiffened. The giant war scythe swung down and that person's head flew high into the air. After killing that person, Wei Yong retreated in front of Lu Yi and coldly snorted, "The Sacred Flame sect wants to be in the limelight? I can't kill that many people. Killing 3 or 5 more should be my limit. Who wants to try?" "Senior, what's the point of bullying the weak?" someone in the crowd angrily shouted. His voice drifted. It was unknown what method he used, but it was obvious that he did not want Wei Yong to determine his location. Wei Yong looked towards the source of the voice and said, "Who is bullying the weak? This is a matter of the spirit stream battlefield. Senior, you can't just force your way in. If all the sects were like Senior, then wouldn't the spirit stream battlefield be a mess? If they dare, then let them in. Let's see if I can kill them." What an unreasonable pester. The person who spoke was furious and shouted, "Everyone, she is now surrounded by the soul-extinguishing divine lightning. She can't kill many people. Don't be afraid of her. Everyone, attack together. If she dares to attack again, she will be destroyed by the divine lightning." "Found you." The corner of Wei Yang's mouth curled up. She extended the war scythe in her hand, and when she pulled it back, there was a thin and small man on the war scythe. The war scythe had pierced through his chest, and he was lifted up high. Blood flowed out from the wound, and the intense pain made him cry out. All the cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge kept quiet out of fear. No one had clearly seen how she had attacked just now. She looked up at the thin man and frowned. "Golden Cloud Towers people? Several decades have passed, but you still haven't made any progress. You like to hide in the dark and sow discord." "It wasn't me." The thin man struggled. Wei Yong waved the scythe in her hand and a bloody mist exploded. She turned to look at Lu Yi and said, "In the future, if you encounter people from the Sacred Flame sect and Golden Cloud Tower in the Spirit Stream battlefield, don't waste words with them. Kill them first. These two sects have a grudge with us." "Yes," Lu Yi respectfully replied. "Oh right, there is also the 100 Refinements Valley. Since the Sacred Flame sect and Golden Cloud Tower are here, there is no reason for the 100 Refinements Valley not to come. Where are they?" She looked around as if she wanted to find someone from the 100 Refinements Valley to kill. However, with so many myriad Devil Ridge cultivators gathered together, it was impossible to tell. Under that sharp gaze, a myriad Devil Ridge cultivator said weakly, "The 100 Refinements Valley's people are blocked by Feng Yuechan in the encampment." Yuechan. Wei Yang's expression softened. The little girl has grown up. She waved the scythe in her hand and said loudly, "I want to take my junior brother away. Does anyone have any objections?" A person from the Sacred Flame sect walked out from the crowd with a pious expression. "As long as the fire in the heart is not extinguished, there is no need to fear death." He stood not far from Wei Yong and looked at her with a calm expression. Wei Yong waved the scythe in her hand and the person from the Sacred Flame sect was immediately cut into two. Another person walked out and chanted, "As long as the fire in the heart is not extinguished, there is no need to fear death." Wei Yang attacked again without any hesitation. A third person from the Sacred Flame sect walked out and shouted the same word. This time, Wei Yang did not attack again and only smiled. She raised her hand and pointed to the sky. "If I don't kill you, someone will." The clear and melodious sound of a sword suddenly rang out. When everyone looked in the direction she was pointing at, they saw a sword gleam descending from the sky like a waterfall. The man from the Sacred Flame sect did not even have the chance to make a sound before he was split into two by the sword gleam. The sword light converged, and a long sword appeared in everyone's eyes. It was inserted diagonally into the ground, and a white-haired man wearing a white robe with red clouds was standing on the hilt of the sword with one hand behind his back. He was like a willow catkin, gently swaying with the movement of the sword hilt. He held a wine gourd in his other hand and drank a mouthful of wine. He burped. "I'm late." "Li Baxian!" Someone cried out in horror. In the myriad Devil Ridge camp, many cultivators were in an uproar. Even if they had not seen Li Baxian before, the cultivators in the Spirit Stream battlefield would have heard of his name. That was because he was a master ranked 10th on the Spirit Stream list. A mere 10th place was not enough to scare people. The main thing was that this guy had reached the 10th place with his 8th order Spirit Stream realm cultivation. There were only 100 people on the Spirit Stream list, and all of them were 9th order masters who cultivated heaven-grade secret art. There was only one exception, and that was the 10th ranked Li Baxian. It was difficult to count the number of 9th order masters who cultivated heaven-grade secret arts in the Spirit Stream battlefield because all the sects in the 9 states were gathered here. Almost every day, there would be people breaking through to the 9th order realm. There were also people who broke through their own shackles and reached the Cloud River realm. There were also people who were killed in the struggle. It could be said that the number of 9th order masters was very difficult to count because it was constantly changing. But no matter what, there were always 10,000 people. 1 out of 100 on the Spirit Stream list, and all those who were on the list were masters among masters. Li Baxian was able to occupy the 10th place with his 8th order cultivation. Part of the reason was that he had fallen from the 9th order realm. Therefore, although he was only an 8th order master, he had the foundation of a 9th order master. It was similar to Dong Shuyi, whom Lu Yi had killed. Before Feng Yuechan occupied the Spirit Stream list, he was the Spirit Stream list. But because of an accident, his spirit aperture was broken, causing his cultivation to fall by a minor realm. Another reason, which was also the most important, was that he was a sword cultivator. Chapter 156. Sword cultivators were the most extreme group of weapon cultivators and were given the title of Sword Madman. It could be said that every true sword cultivator could kill enemies above their realm. Take the North Profound Sword sect of the War Province as an example. This sect didn't have many people. Compared to other first-grade sects, the number of cultivators they had was extremely small, only 30% or less. This was because they had strict requirements for accepting disciples. However, everyone in the North Profound Sword sect was a sword cultivator. They only cultivated the sword their whole life, so even though they didn't have many people, they still firmly occupied the top 10 first-grade sects. There were nearly 100 first-grade sects in the 9 state. If there was a first-grade sect that shouldn't be provoked, it would undoubtedly be the North Profound Sword sect. Even other first-grade sects wouldn't dare to provoke them. The 800 sword cultivators coming down the heavenly mountain wasn't a joke. It really happened. Li Baxian's background was very complicated. He was a disciple of the Blue Blood sect when he was young. Later, he joined the Pill Heart sect and had the opportunity to cultivate in the North Profound Sword sect for several years. Therefore, he had a good relationship with the North Profound Sword sect. The sword master of the North Profound Sword sect even personally went to the Pill Heart sect to accept Li Baxuan as a disciple. However, he was rejected by the Pill Heart sect. However, it could be seen how much the sword master valued Li Baxuan. Although he couldn't accept Li Baxuan as a disciple, the sword master taught Li Baxuan everything he knew except for some of the sect's secret swords that couldn't be taught to outsiders. Li Baxuan didn't disappoint. In the first year after reaching the 9th Order, he defeated the Spirit Stream sect's first rank. If his spirit aperture hadn't been broken, he would have already reached the Cloud River realm or even the True Lake realm. After being stuck in the Spirit Stream tier for more than 10 years, although he was unable to raise his cultivation level, his unfathomable swordsmanship had made unimaginable progress. In the Spirit Stream tier, in terms of swordsmanship, if he claimed to be number 2, no one would dare to claim to be number 1. Even the cultivators of the North Profound Sword sect, who were as rigid as dead wood, would have to respectfully address him as Marshal Uncle Li. This was the reason why he had the confidence to occupy the 10th place as an 8th Order Spirit Stream realm. At this moment, this sword cultivator from the battlefield of fame appeared out of nowhere. Just one man and one sword was enough to intimidate the cultivators of the Myriad Demon Ridge into silence. Wei Yang was indeed powerful, but she had forced her way into the Spirit Stream battlefield as a true lake stage cultivator. The more people she killed, the thicker the soul-extinguishing divine lightning around her body. If she dared to kill another 2 or 3 people, she would definitely be devoured by the divine lightning. When that happened, even if she had the foundation of a true lake stage cultivator, she would not be able to escape death. This was also the reason why the Sacred Flame sect cultivators kept provoking her. In the face of Wei Yang's attack, the Sacred Flame sect cultivators did not even resist. They were clearly waiting for her to kill them because the Sacred Flame sect wanted to get rid of the threat of Wei Yang as soon as possible. But Li Baxuan was different. This guy was a genuine 8th Order Spirit Stream realm cultivator, so he wouldn't be punished for killing someone. Many Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators looked terrified. However, Li Baxuan turned around and revealed a bright smile. "Which one of you is junior brother?" Lu Ye's 5th Order cultivation was too obvious, and he was surrounded by Grand Heaven Alliance's group. Their eyes met and Li Baxuan said, "I am your 4th senior brother." "Greetings, 4th senior brother." Lu Yi saluted. It turns out that Wei Yang isn't the only eldest senior sister in the Blue Blood sect. If Li Baxuan is 4th senior brother, then there must be 2nd senior brother, 3rd senior brother, and so on above him. Good. Li Baxuan nodded with a smile. The old man finally understood and accepted a disciple. Great praise. He then turned to look at Wei Yang and complained, "Senior sister, why didn't you tell me about such a big matter? If it wasn't for Yu Chan telling me, I wouldn't have known that I had a new junior brother." "The old man didn't allow me to say," Wei Yang explained. "That bad temper of his." Li Baxuan snorted and jumped down from his sword. He raised his hand and pulled out his sword. The corner of his mouth had a smile that mesmerized countless female cultivators. It had to be said that this 4th senior brother really had a good appearance. He was extremely handsome. "I am very happy to see junior brother today. I didn't prepare a greeting gift, so I'll kill a few people to liven things up for junior brother." As he said this, the sword in his hand shook slightly. The sword turned into sword light and flashed through the enemy ranks like a bolt of lightning. "Be careful," someone shouted. "Ah," someone screamed. When the sword light began to wreak havoc, the Myriad Demon Ridge camp was in chaos. Sizzling sounds echoed endlessly. This was the sound of a sharp weapon cutting through flesh. Spirit energy began to become chaotic, and cultivators immediately used their power to block and dodge. However, the sword light was unbelievably fast and sharp. Everyone in its path was torn apart. Their fires of life withered and blood flowed like rivers. In just an instant, more than 20 people died tragically under the sword light. And this was only the beginning. A myriad Devil Ridge master rushed in front of Li Baxi. He felt that this was a chance to kill Li Baxi because sword cultivators were most likely to be killed while riding their sword. This person was also a sword cultivator, but he didn't choose to ride his sword. Instead, he directly rushed in front of Li Baxi and waved his sword to create a sword curtain that enveloped Li Baxi. Lu Ye's heart tightened at the sight, but his fourth senior brother just stood there indifferently. He even leisurely grabbed his wine gourd and took a sip. When the sword curtain came down, he opened his mouth and spat out a small sword light. Although the sword light was small, it contained terrifying power. It broke through the sword curtain and pierced through the myriad Devil Ridge cultivator's chest and came out from his back. That person froze in front of Li Baxi. His eyes were filled with disbelief. "You think you're worthy of using a sword?" Li Baxian's face was cold. The small sword light that killed this person didn't disappear. Instead, it turned into a stream of light just like the first sword that flew out. The two streams of light, one large and one small, crisscrossed back and forth. More myriad Devil Ridge cultivators died. "Don't kill all of your merit points," Wei Yang suddenly reminded. Although Li Baxi was only an 8th order, he actually had a 9th order foundation and cultivated a heaven-grade secret art. According to the rules of the Spirit Stream battlefield, he had to kill at least ordinary 9th order cultivators who cultivated Earth-grade secret arts to not be penalized. If he killed an 8th order cultivator who cultivated an Earth-grade secret art, his merit points would be deducted because the difference in cultivation was too great. Cultivators' merit points were hard to come by and were extremely useful, so no one would squander them easily. Li Baxi had killed so many people, so his merit points would definitely be deducted. "I know what I'm doing," Li Baxi responded. He raised his hand and the two streams of light flew back, one flying into his gourd while the other was caught in his hand. The slaughter had come to an end, and the ground was filled with the smell of blood and broken limbs. Lu Yi, who was surrounded by the crowd, felt his heart surge. Not only was his eldest senior sister so ferocious, his fourth senior brother was also so outstanding. The Blue Blood sect. What kind of immortal sect was it? Although he was still in danger, he couldn't help smiling, feeling extremely carefree. The feeling of having someone behind him was really good. He suddenly remembered what Lan Yudi had said to him before. She had said that person had already set off, and as long as he could meet up with that person, it wouldn't be a problem to ensure his survival. Lu Yi didn't know who she was talking about before, but now he knew. The person she was talking about was Li Baxi. "Hurry and take junior brother away," Wei Yang urged. Li Baxi shook his head. "I can't leave, someone has been waiting for me here." If he could leave, he would have taken Lu Yi away when he first arrived. In the current situation, taking Lu Yi to Blue Rainbow Mountains encampment was the most important thing. Killing people was secondary. If he hadn't sensed the aura of his old rival hiding nearby, why would Li Baxi do something so meaningless? He had killed so many myriad Devil Ridge cultivators, but was it really just to liven things up for Lu Yi? His main goal was to reduce the pressure on his side, even if it meant losing a lot of merit points. That person had arrived earlier than him, but he hadn't shown himself because Wei Yang was here. If he dared to show himself, Wei Yang would immediately cut him down. "I can smell the stench on your body from afar, hurry up and come out." Li Baxi suddenly turned his head and looked in a certain direction. He slashed down with the sword in his hand, sending a sword ray towards that direction. The myriad Devil Ridge cultivators hurriedly dodged, but a few of them still died. However, the sharp sword ray was shattered by a long saber. Behind the long saber, a young man with disheveled hair and a tight band on his head stared coldly at Li Baxi. His eyes were like that of a hungry wolf, suffused with a fierce luster. Yan Xing, a Grand Heaven Alliance cultivator, recognized the newcomer's identity and exclaimed. In the 9 provinces, there was a saying of South Saber and North Sword. North Sword referred to the North Profound Sword sect of the War Province, while South Saber referred to the Wild Saber sect of the Ding Province. Both of these sects were first-grade sects, and there were many talents in their sections. Since ancient times, those who practiced the saber looked down on those who practiced the sword, and those who practiced the sword looked down on those who practiced the saber. In any case, both sides hated each other and disliked each other. Although these two sects weren't in the same province, their encampments in the Spirit Stream battlefield were next to each other, so there would often be friction between them. After many years of grudges and grievances, and the deaths of countless disciples, the two sects had become mortal enemies, and both wanted to completely eradicate the other. Yan Xing was from the Wild Saber sect, and his ranking on the Spirit Stream list was much higher than Li Baxian's. He was ranked second. Not to mention the Spirit Stream list, Yan Xing and Li Baxian had a personal grudge. When Li Baxian was cultivating in the North Profound Sword sect, he participated in an operation against the Wild Saber sect. In the end, Li Baxian killed a woman in that battle. That woman was Yan Xing's childhood sweetheart. Ever since then, Yan Xing swore to kill Li Baxian to avenge his woman. He was involved in the battle where Li Baxian's spiritual cavities were broken. Unfortunately, he didn't do his best in that battle, and Li Baxian escaped. With his spiritual cavities broken, Li Baxian couldn't break through to the Cloud River tier, and he wasted more than 10 years. Like Feng Yuechan, Yan Xing's cultivation was stuck, and he stayed in the Spirit Stream battlefield to kill Li Baxian with his own hands. The experts of the various sects on the Spirit Stream list felt sad when they talked about this. The first and second place on the list were stuck because of Li Baxian, and they could only occupy the third place at most. After a long time, these experts stopped thinking about this matter. Those who could break through to the Cloud River tier quickly did so, and left this place as soon as possible. Unfortunately, Li Baxian didn't give Yan Xing a chance at all, because he always stayed in the Soaring Eagle Stone of the Pill Heart sect, and rarely went out. Chapter 157. When he heard that Li Baxian had left the Pill Heart sect, Yan Xing knew that his chance had come. He came here early and hid himself. As expected, Li Baxian came. He didn't care about the game between the Myriad Devil Ridge and the Grand Heaven Alliance. What he wanted to do was very simple. Kill Li Baxian and end the grudge of the past few decades. I'll deal with him. You protect junior brother, Wei Yang said. Li Baxian shook his head. Senior sister, you know that I'm good at killing people, but I'm not good at protecting people. Also, Yan Xing isn't the only one on the Spirit Stream list. You mean? Wei Yang's expression changed slightly. She was affected by the soul-extinguishing divine lightning, and her perception was greatly reduced. Li Baxian snorted. They're all hiding in the crowd to observe the situation. They're all waiting to reap the benefits. His eyes flashed. I'll create an opportunity. You take junior brother away. Although the chances aren't high, we still have to try. Be careful, Wei Yang warned. Li Baxian picked up the wine gourd and poured a mouthful of wine into his mouth. He didn't swallow it but spat it out. In an instant, more than 10 sword lights rushed forward. He was wrapped in a sword light as he charged at Yan Xing. Just as he made his move, Wei Yang also made her move. A dark green leaf wrapped around Lu Yi. She grabbed Lu Ye's collar and soared into the sky. Clearly, she wanted to use the disturbance caused by Li Baxian to bring Lu Yi away. Lu Yi was wrapped in the leaves and couldn't see what was going on outside. He could only feel waves of spiritual energy surging around him, and from time to time, there would be strong impacts. Following Wei Yang's groan, Lu Yi regained control of his body. He looked around and saw that he was back at his original spot. Obviously, Wei Yang couldn't take him away successfully. Even though Wei Yang had been killing in all directions, and those Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were unable to fight back, the truth was that the true experts hadn't even made a move yet. They all felt that Wei Yang wasn't someone to be trifled with and were all waiting for an opportunity. In any case, Wei Yang had forced her way into the spirit stream battlefield. The more people she killed, the worse her situation would be. As long as Wei Yang dared to kill 2 more people, they wouldn't need to do anything. Heaven's punishment would destroy Wei Yang's soul. At this moment, Wei Yang wanted to forcefully take Lu Yi away. Those people naturally could not sit by and do nothing. They attacked together and Wei Yang had no choice but to retreat. If she did not retreat, Lu Yi would probably die. Due to Li Baxian and Wei Yang's actions, the originally calm Golden Light Summit was once again in a chaotic battle. Many Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators were surrounded in the middle, trying their best to resist the attacks from all directions. Fortunately, Wei Yang and Li Baxian had killed a lot of myriad Devil Ridge's people, greatly reducing the pressure on Grand Heaven Alliance's side. Otherwise, it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to hold on. Wei Yang did not attack again. Instead, she stood guard beside Lu Yi, swinging the scythe in her hand to block the incoming spells and talismans. With her around, Lu Yi would not be in any danger. She had tried many times to bring Lu Yi away, but every time she flew up, she would be forced to fall back down. She might have been able to survive, but there was no way Lu Yi would be able to survive. Even more cultivators from Grand Heaven Alliance and Myriad Demon Ridge rushed over. News of Lu Ye's situation had long since spread out. Due to that, the cultivators from the 2 great factions were rushing over as well. As time went by, the number of cultivators gathered there gradually exceeded 1,000. Additionally, that number was still increasing. With Golden Light Summit as the core, large and small battles broke out in all directions. Cultivators from both sides fought each other, turning the entire Golden Light Summit into a minced meat pool. This kind of battle lasted from day to night, and from night to day. Cultivators from both sides fell one after another, but new blood came in from outside to replenish their numbers. More than a dozen masters from the Spirit Stream list had arrived. They were fighting in pairs, and the scene was very tense. No one had expected that this siege against the Jade Blood Sect's disciple would develop like this. Originally, in Myriad Devil Ridge's plan, Jade Blood Sect's Lu Yi was just a 5th-order cultivator. As long as they found an opportunity, anyone with a bit of strength could kill him. Once they killed him, Myriad Devil Ridge would win. However, Grand Heaven Alliance's response was unexpectedly tough. Under the protection of Grand Heaven Alliance's masters, Lu Yi had made it all the way here. Although he was trapped now, as long as Grand Heaven Alliance's people didn't die, it would be very difficult for them to kill Lu Yi. It was hard to stop halfway. Since the Spirit Stream battlefield's existence, there had never been such a fierce battle in the Outer Ring. At this point, whether it was Myriad Devil Ridge or Grand Heaven Alliance, it was impossible for them to stop easily. Both sides had lost too many people. At the center of the battle, Lu Yi, who was protected by the crowd, lowered his eyes and looked at his long saber. The helplessness and anger in his heart grew stronger and stronger. This feeling of not being in control of one's own life was really terrible. Being weak was indeed the biggest sin. No one cared if the weak shouted themselves hoarse, but the strong spoke softly and softly, but the words of the strong were deeply ingrained in people's hearts. Therefore, regardless of the game between the 2 camps, even if they were to die, they would choose a way to die, and not stand here foolishly, waiting for the outcome of this battle to be decided. With a bang, a figure fell in front of Lu Yi. Li Baxian was beaten back, and his body was covered in wounds. There was a gap between the 10th place and the 2nd place. That bastard isn't any better. Although Li Baxian was in a difficult situation, he didn't want to lose face. He grinned at Lu Yi. Little junior brother can rest assured, this elder brother will go and cut off his dog head. Saying so, he got up and prepared to fight again. As a sword cultivator, he was never afraid to fight against those stronger than him. Although he wasn't Yan Xing's opponent now, if it really came down to a life-or-death battle, he was confident he could take Yan Xing down with him. Lu Yi raised his hand and pressed down on his shoulder. Li Baxian looked at Lu Yi in surprise. Enough! Lu Yi said softly. It's enough, senior brother. HM? Stop. Lu Yi smiled at him, then raised his head and looked at the chaotic battlefield. He took a deep breath, and as his spiritual energy surged, he roared, Everyone, stop! Although he was only a fifth-order cultivator, this shout, which was enhanced by spirit chi, was like a thunderclap that spread out in all directions. Both sides of the fierce battle suddenly heard this shout. Many of the cultivators who were already finding it difficult to continue immediately stopped and retreated. The first to stop were the cultivators near Lu Yi. This situation spread out like a ripple, and the battle on the periphery slowly subsided. After 30 breaths of time, all the fighting stopped. The chaotic battlefield became calm, and the chaotic fluctuations of spiritual force gradually disappeared. Pairs of eyes stared at Lu Yi from all directions. Only now did everyone realize that it was this guy who had shouted for everyone to stop. Little junior brother? Wei Yang, who had been standing in front of Lu Yi, looked at him in confusion before turning to Li Baxian. The latter shook his head, indicating that he didn't know what his little junior brother was going to do. I have something to say. Lu Yi opened his mouth and said to Wei Yang. Then, he looked around and said loudly, I have something to say. This sentence was directed to the many cultivators around him. Although I, Lu Yi, don't have a high cultivation, since everyone came for me, I think I am qualified to say a few words. Does anyone have any objections? Fellow Taoists, please speak your mind. Yes, we have no objections. A group of Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators echoed. Lu Ye's sudden interruption of the battle between the two sides allowed both sides to breathe a sigh of relief. Everyone could take advantage of this rare opportunity to rest and recuperate. After a long battle of this scale, most people couldn't bear it anymore. Speak. A Myriad Demon Ridge cultivator spoke. This person was a master ranked in the top 20 of the Spirit Stream list, and came from a first-grade sect. Yan Xing didn't speak, but his attitude represented the entire Myriad Demon Ridge. As for Yan Xing, he only had Li Baxian in his eyes and didn't care about anyone else. Lu Yi nodded and said, Half a year ago, I joined the Blue Blood sect and was attacked on the way back. The sect master sent me to the Spirit Stream battlefield. To be honest, I don't even know what the Blue Blood sect looks like, who is in it, or the grievances of the previous generation. It wasn't until someone came to find me that I knew that I had become the center of the battle between the two camps. I, Lu Yi, am just a fifth-order cultivator. How could I have the power to do so? But since things have reached this point, I can't resist and can only accept it. You people from the Myriad Devil Ridge wanted to kill me. Along the way, I faced dangers everywhere. Luckily, I had many senior brothers and sisters from the Grand Heaven Alliance to protect me. That was why I, Lu Yi, was able to survive until now. Many people died. Some died in front of me, some died in places I couldn't see. I don't even know their names. Today, many people have died here. If we continue fighting, more will die. Do you still want to continue? No one answered. If we continue fighting like this, the casualties will only increase. Is this what you want to see? Lu Yi asked again. The Spirit Stream List Master, who spoke earlier, coldly snorted. Then, in your opinion, shouldn't we just let it go? Of course not. Lu Yi shook his head. So many people have died. I don't think that either Myriad Demon Ridge or Grand Heaven Alliance will let this matter go. If we really let it go, your Myriad Demon Ridge won't be able to explain it to your respective sects. You're a smart man. The man sneered. If you don't want to see so many people from Grand Heaven Alliance die for you, then kill yourself. As long as you die, this battle will naturally end. That's right. Just die, boy. You can't escape. If you kill yourself, you can at least leave a complete corpse. If you are hacked to death, you will be unrecognizable. Many Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators shouted. Wei Yang, who was standing beside Lu Yi, had a gloomy expression. She almost couldn't help but want to kill all those who were shouting. Lu Yi slowly shook his head. So many senior brothers and senior sisters from Grand Heaven Alliance have died because of me. If I die, how can they rest in peace? Moreover, I'm still so young. I don't want to die. If you don't want to die, then why are you talking so much nonsense? The man's face turned angry. Lu Ye's eyelids drooped as she spoke slowly. Although the feeling of being protected is not bad, as a cultivator, there are some things that concern us. We should always bear some responsibilities. Unfortunately, my cultivation base is not high enough to bear too much. He slowly pulled out the long saber at his waist and pointed it at Myriad Demon Ridge's camp. Jade Blood Sect's disciple, Lu Yi, hereby challenges all the major sects of Myriad Demon Ridge. If you have the same cultivation base and want to kill me, then come and fight. Chapter 158. Blue Blood Sect's disciple, Lu Yi, hereby challenges all the great sects of Myriad Demon Ridge. Anyone with the same cultivation as me who wants to kill me, feel free to fight. A deep and sonorous voice spread out under the influence of spirit chi as pairs of eyes focused on Lu Yi, some filled with surprise, some puzzlement and most of all shock. Challenging so many sects from Myriad Demon Ridge by himself sounded awe-inspiring and domineering, but in fact it was foolish. There were nearly 1,000 Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators here, and even if the number of fifth-order cultivators with the same cultivation as Lu Yi was not high, there were at least 100 of them. To put it bluntly, a single spit from each of them could drown Lu Yi. However, it was undeniable that his courage was truly impressive. The Myriad Demon Ridge Master raised his brow. Can you represent Blue Blood Sect and Grand Heaven Union? Li Baxian's face turned cold. Children speak nonsense, there's no need to take it seriously. Lu Yi turned his head and smiled at him before turning to the Myriad Demon Ridge Master who spoke. I can't represent anyone, I only represent myself. But didn't you all come here for me? At this point, this dispute can no longer be resolved in a normal way, unless you want more people to die. I'm just offering you a way to solve this problem. In addition, I have some requests. If Myriad Demon Ridge can't agree to these requests, just pretend I didn't say anything. You can continue fighting, I'll just quietly watch the show. Speak. The Myriad Demon Ridge Master quickly said. I will only accept one challenge from each sect, and only one person at a time. If I lose, I have nothing to say, but if I win by a fluke, that sect must withdraw from this dispute. I ask the heavens to bear witness. When these words fell, Li Baxian raised his brow. He had thought that his little junior brother's actions were unwise due to his anger, but now it seemed that he still had some ideas. However, the only question now was how strong his little junior brother was and whether he could take on so many challenges. If little junior brother was really strong enough, then this method could indeed resolve this dispute, but if he was not strong enough, he would inevitably become a stepping stone for someone else to rise up. The bounty for killing blue blood sects Lu Yi was quite high. He turned his head and glanced at Wei Yang, asking for her opinion. Wei Yang slowly shook her head, indicating that she did not know how strong her junior brother was. The two of them had never interacted with Lu Yi before. Although Wei Yang had long known that the headmaster had taken in a junior brother, she had only seen him in person yesterday. How could she know how strong Lu Yi was? What? The Myriad Demon Ridge is so big, and there are so many talent. Is there no one who dares to accept the challenge? Above the golden light that was as smooth as a mirror, the cultivators on both sides were completely silent. Only Lu Ye's voice echoed. Suddenly, a woman said, You, Lu Yi, can kill people above your level. How many people of the same cultivation level can be your match? You've really calculated everything. As the voice rang out, a woman leisurely walked out of the crowd. She looked at Lu Yi with a cold expression. It was Han Jiyu of the Tai Luo sect. Lu Yi had been chased by her before, but fortunately, Tang Wu was hiding nearby and stopped her. Now that Tang Wu was nowhere to be seen, This Han Zhiyu had actually come out. This little brat can kill people above his level? The master in the top 20 of the spirit stream list frowned. He was wondering why this Lu Yi of the Jade Blood sect was so arrogant. It turned out that he had such confidence. Han Zhiyu bowed to this person gracefully, then stared at Lu Yi and said, "That's right. When this person was in the 4th Order Spirit Stream realm, he killed several 5th Order cultivators of my Tai Luo sect. Now that he is a 5th Order cultivator, if you want to kill him, you will need at least a 6th Order cultivator. He is indeed a talent. No wonder he was accepted by the Jade Blood sect. And you may not know this, but this little brat is also good at using a defensive spirit inscription to fight, so it will be very difficult to break through his defense." Han Zhiyu continued to expose Lu Ye's background. When she said this, her face was full of pride, as if she wanted to see if Lu Yi would die or not. As soon as these words came out, the crowd went into an uproar. Spirit inscriptions were something that every cultivator was familiar with. In every cultivator's life and cultivation, spirit inscriptions were indispensable. In the 9 continents, there was a special group of people called spirit inscriptionists. Most of these people didn't have much fighting power, because they put too much energy into studying spirit inscriptions and rarely fought with others. However, there was a very small group of spirit inscriptionists who couldn't be provoked. They were called battle spirit inscriptionists, or battle spirit inscriptionists for short. Compared to the terrifying killing power of sword cultivators, battle spirit inscriptionists could be said to be treacherous and changeable. Their enemies often died without even knowing how they died. Spiritual inscriptions were complicated and profound. Under normal circumstances, cultivators would only start to study spiritual inscriptions after they had a certain cultivation base. However, they would only start to study spiritual inscriptions. If they wanted to use spiritual inscriptions in battle, they would need many years of accumulation. The 9 continents was vast and there were tens of thousands of cultivators, but there were less than 100 famous battle spirit inscriptionists. These people were all distinguished guests of the top sects. A 5th Order cultivator who could use spirit inscriptions in battle, not to mention seeing it, had never even heard of it. This was a good seedling for battle spirit inscriptionists. If those famous battle spirit inscriptionists knew about this, they would probably rush to recruit him as their disciple. So, don't be fooled by him. If you really let people of the same cultivation level fight him, they will all die. Han Zhiyu looked at Lu Yi with a sneer. When Lu Yi jumped out to talk nonsense, she had already seen through his plan. "Is Sang He your senior brother?" A faint voice suddenly sounded in Han Zhiyu's ears. The smile on Han Zhiyu's face immediately stiffened. She looked at Li Baxian timidly and denied flatly, "No, no." Li Baxian said indifferently, "Very good, get ready to collect his corpse." Han Zhiyu cursed in her heart. These people from the Blue Blood sect were too unreasonable. She had only stood out to speak the truth, but she was threatened like this. "Senior brother," sang he, "if you see Li Baxian in the future, you must run away quickly, or you will die. Also, I didn't do it on purpose." The Myriad Demon Ridge Master suddenly smiled and looked at Lu Yi. "Your proposal just now was good, but in terms of cultivation, I think it should be limited to no higher than the 6th Order. What do you think?" Lu Ye's face turned ashen and he remained silent. He looked like he had been exposed but couldn't do anything about it. The Myriad Demon Ridge Master said indifferently, "Just now, you said that this matter was related to you and you had to take responsibility. What, is this all you can take responsibility for? The people of the Blue Blood sect are nothing more than this." "Good." The veins on Lu Ye's forehead bulged, as if he had been provoked. Li Baxian and Wei Yang shouted in unison, "Little junior brother, you can't." The Myriad Demon Ridge Master took advantage of the situation and said, "The person involved has already agreed, but you two still want to stop him. What? Do you really want the people of Grand Heaven Union to continue fighting for your Blue Blood sect?" A sect that is about to be wiped out is still struggling. This sentence really made Li Baxuan speechless. He glared at the man before turning to Lu Yi. Little junior brother is confused. He is obviously trying to provoke you. How can you agree to this so easily? Even if Lu Yi could really kill people above his realm, challenging people of the same cultivation was already risky enough. He wasn't going to fight one person, but a group of people. If it was the Sixth Order, there would be no hope. Lu Yi turned to look at him. Senior brother, I can do it. Li Baxuan wanted to say, you can do it my ass. Everyone had been young and frivolous before, but they often had to pay a heavy price. Even when he was in the Fifth Order, he didn't dare to accept such a challenge, as it could really kill him. However, when he met Lu Ye's eyes, he found that there was no anger or struggle in them, only eagerness. Lu Yi lowered his eyes and looked towards the back of Li Baxuan's hand. The latter immediately understood and flicked his finger towards the back of his hand, sending a blue light towards Lu Yi. Immediately after, he sent a message, little junior brother, how strong are you? Tell your senior brother. I've killed a few Sixth Order, but not a Seventh Order, but if I go all out, I may have a chance. Exclamation point. Li Baxuan was shocked. This wasn't just killing an enemy above his realm, this was killing an enemy 2 realms above his own. How could his little junior brother be so fierce? Although this old man had a stubborn temper, his vision was still as sharp as a torch. However, Li Baxuan didn't show the slightest expression on his face, and instead wore a worried look as he continued to send a message. Did you do that on purpose? Lu Ye's attitude of immediately agreeing after being provoked was so realistic that Li Baxuan didn't see any flaws. Let's go with the flow, Lu Yi replied. He didn't expect Han Zhiyu to be here. He hadn't noticed her before, and now that Han Zhiyu had exposed him, it was no longer possible for him to challenge someone of the same cultivation level. If we really do that, it'll be a war of attrition. This time, there are at least 30 sects from Myriad Demon Ridge, if not 50. Can you handle it? I'll do my best. Senior brother, if we continue to fight, no one will gain anything. If we can succeed, it'll be the best way to solve the problem. Li Baxuan was silent. How could he not know this? The Myriad Demon Ridge side had also seen this point. The current situation was no longer under anyone's control because more and more cultivators from the 2 camps were involved in the battle with Lu Yi. The battle would become more and more chaotic. Yesterday there were only 1,000 people on Golden Light Peak, but today there were almost 2,000, and there would only be more and more in the future. Was Myriad Demon Ridge really willing to listen to the advice of a Fifth Order cultivator? If it weren't for the fact that they were riding a tiger and couldn't get off, they would have treated Lu Ye's words as nonsense. It could be said that Lu Yi made a proposal that was beneficial to both sides when both sides needed it. This was the biggest reason why the Myriad Demon Ridge side was willing to agree to this proposal. Moreover, at this point, many people from Grand Heaven Alliance hoped that things would develop in this direction. If he refused, it would only cause the Jade Blood sect to lose people's support, especially after the Myriad Demon Ridge side said, "Do you really want the people of Grand Heaven Alliance to fight to the death for your Jade Blood sect?" The people of Grand Heaven Alliance came here on the orders of their master, but the people of Myriad Demon Ridge were different. They would gain great benefits from killing Lu Yi. Therefore, whether he was willing or not, when Lu Yi made this proposal, it was necessary to implement it. Chapter 159. Li Baxuan suddenly realized that even though his little junior brother was only a Fifth Order realm cultivator and had always been protected, his heart was still as clear as a mirror. Letting out a long sigh, he looked at Wei Yang and asked softly, "Can you switch?" His question was baffling, but Wei Yang shook her head. "She's asleep." "Then we can't rely on the strength of outsiders," Li Baxuan muttered. Since the direction of the situation was already decided, the details needed to be discussed. He raised his hand and wiped his face full of worry. My little junior brother is a kind person and doesn't want anyone to die for him. If Myriad Demon Ridge thinks his previous proposal is feasible, then let's discuss the details together. If such a battle was to be carried out, there would definitely be many things to discuss. It wasn't something that could be pushed forward by Lu Yez, who wants to kill me? Come and fight me. Naturally, the discussion would be carried out by the masters of both sides. Even if Lu Yi was the cause of this matter and the center of the battle, he wasn't qualified to participate. After all, his cultivation was too low and he didn't have much experience. However, with Li Baxian taking charge of this matter, there was no need to worry that the results of the discussion would be detrimental to him. Lu Yi had already experienced just how protective his senior brothers and senior sisters of the Blue Blood sect were. This was especially true of his eldest senior sister. He didn't know what kind of cultivation base she had possessed, but she had stubbornly endured the punishment of heaven's fate and charged into the spirit stream battlefield to guard him. Saying so, Li Baxian called out to a sword cultivator in the crowd. The sword cultivator immediately rushed over and cupped his fists. Martial Uncle Li. Although they looked about the same age, Li Baxian's seniority was actually higher. It could be said that 99% of the cultivators on the spirit stream battlefield were younger than him. This couldn't be helped. He didn't want to stay on the spirit stream battlefield forever. However, his spirit aperture had been broken and he couldn't break through, so he was in despair. This sword cultivator came from the North Profound Sword sect and was also a master on the spirit stream list. "Protect my little junior brother," Li Baxian ordered. The sword cultivator immediately replied, "Martial uncle, don't worry." Although Wei Yang had always been protecting Lu Yi, Wei Yang's current state was not right. With the divine lightning surrounding her, as long as one or two more people died in his hands, she would definitely be annihilated by the divine lightning. There was the Sacred Flame sect in the Myriad Devil Ridge. Those people had their minds burned by their own sacred flame. They were not normal people. It was hard to guarantee that they would not take risk. This swordsman was a form of insurance. Li Baxian flew out in a flash, along with several other experts from the Spirit Stream list. Several people from the Myriad Devil Ridge also flew out. More than 10 experts from the Spirit Stream list gathered to discuss the details of the upcoming battle. It didn't take long for them to quarrel until their faces and necks were red, especially Li Baxian. His spiritual energy fluctuated violently as sword qi wreaked havoc around his body. Lu Yi trembled with fear. They won't fight, right? If they did, there would be no room for negotiation. Wei Yang glanced at him and comforted him. They won't fight. They're just putting on a show. Lu Yi watched for a while and realized that the situation was getting more and more intense. However, no one made a move. He immediately understood that Wei Yang was right. He raised his hand and patted the shoulder of the swordsman standing in front of him. "Thank you, senior brother." This swordsman was the azure-robed man who had blocked a powerful enemy for him. "Martial Uncle Li's matter is our North Profound Sword sect's matter. Young Martial Uncle, there's no need for you to be so polite," the swordsman replied indifferently. Did he just become Li Baxian's young martial uncle? Lu Yi thought about his own age. Seniority was really a strange thing. Wei Yang squatted down and teased Hupu. Hupu raised his head slightly and squinted his eyes. He looked very comfortable with his chin being scratched. Strangely enough, the dark purple lightning on Wei Yang's body looked extremely violent, but no one touched it. Lu Yi had learned from the others that this thing was called soul-extinguishing lightning. It seemed to be related to eldest senior sister forcing her way into the spirit stream battlefield to kill people. The more people she killed, the greater the damage it would cause to her. But now, it seemed that eldest senior sister was completely fine. She allowed the dark purple lightning to jump around her body. Lu Yi didn't know if she was really fine or just faking it. "All the sect managers of the Myriad Devil Ridge, get over here." Li Baxian's voice suddenly came from not far away. After a moment of hesitation, several figures rushed over. Lu Yi watched coldly from the sidelines and discovered that there were at least 40 people who had gone over. In other words, there were so many sects gathered here. A moment later, there was a low murmur. It seemed to be Li Baxian's voice. Lu Yi didn't hear it clearly, but following the murmur, a golden whirlpool suddenly appeared in the sky. From the golden whirlpool, a milky white pillar of light shot towards Li Baxian. Before the milky white pillar of light completely landed, Li Baxian raised his hand and grabbed at it. Surprisingly, his hand was holding an ancient beast skin. The pillar of light disappeared, and so did the golden whirlpool. What was that? Lu Yi was curious. This was the first time he had seen something like this. A heavenly secret contract. Wei Yang explained, this kind of contract requires many people to sign together. It's too troublesome to swear a heavenly secret oath one by one, so you can invite a heavenly secret contract, but you'll need to spend some merit points. Lu Yi was surprised. Heavenly secret was a mysterious existence in this world. It was high and mighty, monitoring all living things. If one spent merit points, they could even communicate with heavenly secret. Li Baxian held the heavenly secret contract and carefully inspected it. Then, he bit his finger and pressed a blood mark on it. With him as the leader, many cultivators followed suit. Soon, there were dozens of blood marks on the heavenly secret contract. Li Baxian gloomily walked back with the heavenly secret contract. A moment later, the experts of both sides began to clear the area. Under the restrictions of these experts, the bustling central area of the Golden Light Summit was cleared. Even the corpses of those who had died in battle were taken away. The two sides each occupied one side, and in the central area, there was a temporary stage that covered an area of 200 feet. This was the battlefield where Lu Yi and the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators would fight. At this moment, Lu Yi and Wei Yang were looking at the various clauses of the heavenly secret contract. These were the details drawn up by the masters of both sides and witnessed by heavenly secret. No one could violate them. There were more than 30 clauses in total. They were extremely comprehensive and completely eliminated the possibility of opportunism. Among these clauses, the highest cultivation of the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators who would fight Lu Yi was a 6th-order cultivator who cultivated an Earth-grade secret art. The reason why this was specifically noted was naturally because a 6th-order heaven-grade secret art and an Earth-grade secret art were two completely different existences. The former had opened 180 apertures while the latter had only opened 81. This was the advantage of having someone backing him. Lu Yi had not considered this before, but Li Baxian was different. In addition, he was not allowed to rely on any external forces. There were no restrictions on spirit artifacts he had refined, and he was not allowed to use spirit talismans in battle. Under the constraints of these clauses, if one wanted to win, they would have to kill Lu Yi in a head-on battle. Many of the clauses were not very friendly to Lu Yi, but there were some that were beneficial to him. For example, in each battle, Lu Yi had the right to choose to rest for an incense stick worth of time, and this was the result of Li Baxian's efforts. For a cultivator, an incense stick worth of time was too short, but myriad Devil Ridge refused to agree to a longer period of time, so Li Baxian was helpless. However, he managed to win another clause that was even more beneficial to Lu Yi. That was, this battle would be limited to 3 days. After 3 days, if Lu Yi was still alive, myriad Devil Ridge would have to withdraw. Alternatively, Lu Yi would have to kill all the cultivators from his sect who had left their names on the heavenly secret contract. Lu Yi read these clauses one by one and committed them to memory. Wei Yang looked at him worriedly. "Little junior brother, you don't have to do this. If your 4th senior brother and I go all out to protect you, we may have a chance to send you away." Even though Li Baxian had tried his best, it was almost impossible for a 5th-order cultivator to survive 3 days under the continuous attacks of the enemy. Several dozen myriad Devil Ridge sects, if each of them sent a 5th or 6th-order cultivator, would be able to exhaust Lu Yi to death. Hearing Wei Yang's words, Lu Yi shook his head. Everyone has done enough for me. So many people have already died, I can't always hide behind others. Eldest senior sister and fourth senior brother are willing to risk their lives to protect me, but as your little junior brother, I can't accept it with a clear conscience. This battle started because of me, so I should be the one to end it. Wei Yang's mood was stifled. After waiting for so many years, she had finally met her little junior brother. There was hope for the sex inheritance, but they were now embroiled in a game between two great factions. In such a violent situation, even she, a true Lake Realm cultivator who had forced her way into the Spirit Stream battlefield, would find it difficult to accomplish anything, let alone her little junior brother who was only a fifth order. She only hated the unfairness of the heavens, and hated that her cultivation was not enough. Eldest senior sister. Li Baxian suddenly shouted. Wei Yang's somewhat chaotic aura slowly calmed down, and her eyes, which had already spread out, refocused. I won't die. Lu Ye's expression was calm. I still want to see what the Blue Blood sect looks like. I have no home in this world, no relatives. Since the sect master accepted me, the Blue Blood sect is my home, and you and fourth senior brother are my family. So, I won't die. Lu Yi stepped forward, step by step, to the center of the battlefield, where a simple ring had been arranged by the masters of both camps. Standing still, Lu Yi looked towards the Myriad Demon Ridge camp and said softly, Who wants to die? On the Myriad Demon Ridge side, pairs of mocking eyes looked over, looking at Lu Yi as if they were looking at a dead man. In their minds, this Blue Blood sect disciple must have lost his mind to make such a proposal. A trivial fifth-order cultivator daring to provoke the entire Myriad Demon Ridge camp was simply overestimating himself. Now that the Heaven's Fate contract had been established, Grand Heaven Union had no room to go back on their word. Anyone who dared to interfere with this battle would be suppressed by the masters of both sides under the constraints of the Heaven's Fate contract. So, even someone like Yan Xing did not dare to act rashly at this time. He could only stare fiercely at Li Baxian across the Golden Dome. Chapter 160. Fortunately, in order to appease Yan Xing, Li Baxian had agreed to give him a chance to settle their grudges after this matter was over. This was also the reason why Yan Xing could sit here peacefully. Many of the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators had a hint of excitement in their eyes. The fifth-order cultivator standing on top of the golden light was a living treasure trove. As long as he could kill him, the rewards he would receive would be inexhaustible. Almost at the same time as Lu Yi shouted, a burly man jumped out, I'll do it. Although this guy was only a fifth-order cultivator, he was obviously a physique cultivator. He wanted to rely on his thick skin to test Lu Ye's ability. At the same time, he also wanted to get lucky. If he could kill Lu Yi, he would become rich overnight. Blue Blood sect, Lu Yi. Lu Yi called out. White Wolf City, Shirley. After saying this, he reached into his storage pouch, wanting to take out his defensive spirit artifact. With a defensive spirit artifact, he would be in an invincible position. However, just as he reached into his storage pouch, his expression changed greatly. Lu Yi was rushing towards him at an extremely fast speed. In a few steps, Lu Yi had already arrived in front of this man. This physique cultivator named Shirley had just taken out his defensive spirit artifact, a small shield-like spirit artifact. He hurriedly retreated while pouring his spirit chi into his spirit artifact. The long saber was unsheathed and a fiery red spirit chi flashed. Shirley stood in place and looked at Lu Yi in horror. A line of blood appeared on his throat and quickly expanded. Then, a fountain of blood gushed out and his head flew high into the air. Behind the headless corpse, many Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators looked at this scene in shock. All of them were dumbfounded. Although Han Zhiyu had said that Lu Yi could kill people above his realm, it was still surprising that he could kill a cultivator of the same cultivation so quickly. One had to know that Shirley was a physique cultivator with thick skin. The battle was over almost immediately after the two sides reported their names. Idiot! One of the experts from the myriad Devil Ridge, who was on the spirit stream list, coldly snorted. He was talking about the guy named Shirley. He knew that his opponent was not to be trifled with, yet he had still underestimated him. He hadn't made any preparations before the battle, and had only taken out his defensive spiritual item after entering the arena. Such a person was destined to have a hard time achieving anything. Even if he didn't die today, he would die sooner or later. After a short moment of surprise, the Grand Heaven Alliance camp erupted in cheers. Among them, Li Baxian's cheers were the loudest. Wei Yang's tense expression also relaxed a little. Lu Yi kept Shirley's small shield and storage bag before turning around and tossing them out. Wei Yang caught them. These were his spoils of war, his first spoils of war. It was a beautiful tradition to collect the spoils of war after killing the enemy. No matter what, it could not be discarded. After losing the first battle, many cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge felt humiliated. But most of them knew that this was just the beginning. The myriad Devil Ridge was taking turns to fight Lu Yi. Every sect that came here had a quota to fight. They could lose, they could die, and the people behind them would always have a chance. But Lu Yi couldn't. If he lost even once, he would die without a doubt. Within 3 days, there would be at least a few dozen battles, if not more. How could a mere Fifth Order survive? Next, before Lu Yi returned to his camp, he gently shook off the blood on his blade. The stewards of the myriad Devil Ridge's great sects secretly discussed, and soon a person walked out. It was a woman with good looks and a voluptuous figure. The key was that this woman wore very little, so she attracted a lot of attention as soon as she appeared. Wei Yang's face sank when she saw her. Slutty fox. Li Baxian also frowned, secretly worried. Facing such a beauty, it would be difficult for a hot-blooded youth to kill her. It had to be said that the second person chosen by myriad Devil Ridge was very targeted. Turning his head to look at Lu Yi, seeing his calm expression, he once again introduced himself. Blue Blood Sect, Lu Yi. The woman turned her head to look at the corpse not far away and shrunk her neck, as if she was still a little afraid. Her timid expression was really pitiful. Hearing Lu Ye's voice, she sweetly replied, Windflower Courtyard, Chu Shui. With a bang, mud and stone flew up from the ground as Lu Yi rushed towards her, his movements extremely fast. Junior brother, don't be impatient. The delicate Chu Shui spoke coquettishly, but her attacks were extremely ruthless. Raising her hand, a blazing fireball appeared, followed by a light blue wind blade. The key was that when this woman attacked, her thin clothes couldn't cover her body at all, allowing the spectating cultivators to feast their eyes on her. Shameless! Wei Yang was about to explode in anger, wishing she could go up and twist off this cheap slut's head. Not good! Li Baxian's expression changed. In the ring, Lu Yi raised his blade and slashed towards the fireball. This fireball was even weaker than Dong Shai's, so he wasn't afraid. However, before he could hit the fireball, the wind blade behind it suddenly exploded. A smug smile appeared on the face of the woman called Chu Shui as she muttered in her heart, Success! A gust of wind rose and the wind fanned the flames. The fireball suddenly turned into a raging inferno, its power increasing by more than 30% as it shot towards Lu Yi. This was Chu Shui's best technique. As a sixth-order cultivator, she didn't underestimate Lu Yi, who was a minor realm lower than her. After all, the corpse of the body cultivator from before was right next to her feet, so she used her trump card to kill Lu Yi in one fell swoop. However, just as her smile bloomed on her face, it became incomparably stiff. Amidst the raging flames, Lu Ye's figure brazenly rushed out, his already extremely fast speed suddenly increasing. Chu Shui's beautiful face turned pale as she hurriedly urged her secret technique to resist. However, it was too late. Lu Yi rushed forward and cut off one of her raised arms, then broke through the spirit chi barrier in front of her, taking advantage of the momentum to cut open a wound on her chest. A mournful scream rang out as the naked woman stumbled back, tears blurring her eyes. The last thing she saw was a flash of saber light. In front of the woman's corpse, Lu Yi stood awkwardly. He had suffered a bit just now, but fortunately, he had hurriedly urged his secret technique to resist when he realized something was wrong, so he didn't suffer too much damage. However, some of his hair and clothes were burnt. This time, he didn't return to his original position, but stood in front of the myriad demon ridge camp and slowly raised his saber. Next, the tip of his saber seemed to be pointed at every myriad demon ridge cultivator behind him. The Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators were silent. Many people didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This little brat from Blue Blood sect was a bit too arrogant. But this scene really made one's body and mind clear. Good kill. Wei Yang's eyes curved into crescents. Little junior brother's ruthless performance was undoubtedly to her liking. What snow white and full legs! In front of the camp, they were just a pile of rotten meat. Li Baxian's eyes twitched. Why is he the same as third senior brother? And they both use sabers. He suddenly became a little mad. Why use sabers? The third battle soon began. According to the terms of the Heaven Fate contract, Lu Yi had the opportunity to rest for an incense stick worth of time after each battle, but since he didn't choose, the Myriad Demon Ridge side naturally wouldn't give him any time to breathe. In the ring, Lu Yi was chasing after the Sixth Order cultivator, and in just a short while, the latter could only parry his attacks and couldn't fight back. Seeing this scene, the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, they knew in advance that this little brat from Blue Blood sect could kill opponents above his realm. Otherwise, if they had agreed to his initial proposal, no Fifth Order cultivator would have dared to go up and die. Even a Sixth Order cultivator wasn't his opponent, let alone a Fifth Order cultivator? A saber light flashed and blood splattered. Lu Yi rushed forward and was about to cut his opponent to death when his opponent shouted, "I admit defeat." The saber in Lu Ye's hand stopped in front of his opponent's neck. The sharp edge of the saber cut open a layer of flesh, causing blood to gush out. "I admit defeat." The man hurriedly jumped back and reached out to touch his neck, a look of fear on his face. If he had shouted a little slower just now, he would have lost his head. Although admitting defeat was shameful, it was better than losing his life. Lu Yi withdrew his saber and didn't kill his opponent. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that the Heaven Fate contract stipulated that the Myriad Demon Ridge side had the opportunity to admit defeat. This opportunity was only for Myriad Demon Ridge, and Lu Yi didn't have it. If he lost, he would die. It could be said that this battle wasn't fair from the beginning. But how could there be so much fairness in this world? The man retreated dejectedly. Thinking back to the short battle just now, he couldn't help but shiver. He had never encountered such an aggressive Fifth Order cultivator. When he was fighting, he couldn't help but have the illusion that he was the one with the lower cultivation. Again, Lu Yi looked forward. Someone jumped out. The fourth battle had begun. In the Grand Heaven Alliance camp, several masters on the Spirit Stream list gathered around Li Baxian. One of them frowned and said, "Although it's good to dampen the enemy's spirit, it consumes too much energy. I'm afraid he won't be able to last long." Yes, and although he is fierce when fighting, his attacks aren't methodical. "I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to deal with opponents with superb techniques," another person said. These people were all masters on the Spirit Stream list, so their vision was naturally extremely sharp. Although Lu Yi had only fought 3 battles, they had already seen the drawbacks. That was, Lu Yi was fighting too fiercely. If Lu Yi wasn't facing a large number of enemies, this kind of fierce fighting style would be the best way to deal with them, as it would often scare them off. However, he was facing too many enemies, so he had to fight steadily. What's more, with the masters on the Spirit Stream list present, it was impossible for the enemy to be scared off. Even if Lu Yi was twice as fierce, there would still be people who would fight him. Moreover, Lu Ye's attacks weren't methodical at all. Every strike was meant to kill. It could be said that he would use his saber whenever it was convenient to kill. This was the fighting style he had accumulated through battle after battle, as no one had ever taught him how to use a saber. Although this method was fierce, it also had a big flaw that could be easily seized by others. Chapter 161. If the experts of the Hautian Alliance could see this, how could the people of the Myriad Demon Ridge not see it? Therefore, the person sent by the Myriad Demon Ridge for the 4th round was a cultivator who was proficient in fighting technique. He held a long sword, and under the activation of his spiritual power, the long sword in his hand seemed to come alive. He stabbed, pointed, raised, and flicked. All kinds of techniques were used, and it was really dazzling. However, after a few slashes from Lu Yi, this person's sword technique went from dazzling to messy. It wasn't easy for him to find an opening and thrust his sword towards Lu Ye's heart. In the end, he was blocked by a spirit pattern that flashed and disappeared. The defensive spirit pattern had been exposed by Han Zhaoyue, so Lu Yi naturally didn't want to hide it. He didn't activate it before because there was no need. However, facing such a skilled opponent, the defensive spirit pattern was very important. He had encountered such a skilled opponent in the battle to save Hu Po, so he knew how to deal with such a person. That was to not compete with the opponent in terms of skills. No matter how skilled the opponent was, he had to take a few slashes from Lu Yi first. In short, it was a fight between the opponent and Lu Yi. The sword that he was determined to kill did not succeed. When the long sword slashed down, the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivator's eyes were filled with horror. He opened his mouth and shouted, "I admit," before he could say the last word, his head had already fallen to the ground. Lu Yi stood on the spot. His blood and qi were surging, and his killing intent was soaring. He understood that as long as he attacked fast enough, the opponent wouldn't have time to shout and admit defeat. It wasn't that he didn't know that he would consume a lot of energy if he continued fighting like this. He also knew that he should stall for time, but he was only one person after all. He didn't know how many battles he had to face. Only by killing the enemy and making them afraid would the situation he had to face later turn for the better. Staring at the corpse lying on the ground, Lu Yi suddenly realized that this kind of skilled opponent didn't seem to be very difficult to deal with. When he saved Hu Po, he almost died together with the enemy. In the end, although he killed the enemy, he was seriously injured. Hu Po brought him back to find Hua Ci for treatment, and that black-hearted woman ridiculed him for a long time. He slowly came to his senses. It wasn't that the enemy wasn't difficult to deal with, but that he had more experience in fighting enemies. The battles, the blood, and the wounds not only brought about an increase in strength, but also an increase in experience and eyesight. Indeed, he did not have any method to kill his enemies, but every slash he made was the most smooth and perfect slash. Compared to a rigid method, this was the best technique. This was a killing technique. Junior brother. Li Baxian's voice suddenly came from behind Lu Yi. After killing that person, Lu Yi stood in place without moving, as if he had been hit by a spell. His opponent had already jumped out, yet he was still indifferent. Lu Yi came back to his senses. It turned out that unknowingly, he had already possessed many things that he had never noticed before. Lu Ye's sword. Calm's sword's Lu Ye's sword. Lu Ye's sword. Only then did Lu Yi get a clear look at his opponent. It was a burly fellow with a finger-wide greatsword in his hands. He leaped into the air and slashed down viciously. The moment their weapons collided, Lu Ye's body sank slightly. He shifted his center of gravity and steadied himself. Then, he pushed his sword back. When the ear-piercing sound of friction rang out, a look of disbelief appeared in the sturdy male cultivator's eyes. He was sent flying by an irresistible force. Everyone was dumbfounded by this scene. Lu Yi couldn't be compared to his opponent at all. His opponent this time was obviously a strong and ferocious cultivator. This kind of person was naturally suited to walk the path of a body cultivator. However, this guy probably wanted to become a weapon cultivator. That was why he chose such an exaggerated weapon. He wanted to defeat 10 people with brute force. Lu Ye's choice wasn't wrong. Along the way, no cultivator of the same level could compete with him in terms of strength. Even if there was someone close to his strength, they would still be cut by his exaggerated sword until they doubted their life. Until this time. What made it even more difficult for him to accept was that his opponent had actually sent him flying with only one hand holding a sword. This time, it was his turn to doubt his life. What a strong force! Next to Li Baxian, an expert on the spirit stream list whispered. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that something on Lu Ye's body seemed to have changed. If Lu Ye had been a little timid before, then he was now completely unrestrained. Li Baxian's eyes flashed. He also saw something different. You don't seem to have introduced yourself. In the ring, Lu Ye quickly followed after his opponent after sending him flying. Before his opponent landed on the ground, he slashed a few times, leaving several wounds on his body. Blood spurted out and the man's face twisted in pain. When he landed on the ground, he raised his sword with both hands to block. However, Lu Ye's movements weren't exactly nimble. Compared to him, Lu Ye was like a dancing butterfly, extremely nimble and agile. In the blink of an eye, the man's body was covered in wounds. Fortunately, the wounds weren't deep, which gave him the illusion that he could continue to fight. However, the onlookers could clearly see that the reason he could still stand in the ring was because Lu Ye didn't kill him at all. He seemed to be deliberately torturing his opponent. Which sect are you from? Lu Ye asked again, while forcing his opponent to retreat with a slash. The strong male cultivator panted. Although he knew he was no match for Lu Ye, he still stubbornly replied, Ningyi Fort. After getting the answer he wanted, Lu Ye nodded slightly. Mud and stones splashed under his feet, and he instantly appeared in front of his opponent. His speed was so fast that the strong male cultivator couldn't react in time. When he saw Lu Ye's slash, he could only hurriedly raise his sword to block in front of him. Lu Ye immediately stabbed with his saber. This time, the saber stabbed through his chest and came out from his back, directly piercing through his opponent. When he pulled out the saber, blood spurted out. Lu Ye then kicked out, sending the man flying. The man lay on the ground, feeling his life ebbing away. Even in death, he couldn't understand one thing. Why didn't his enemy kill him earlier when he could have done so quickly? In the Grand Heaven Alliance camp, Wei Yang whispered softly, Our little junior brother seems to be very vengeful. Li Baxian nodded in agreement. Asking about his opponent's background twice during the battle clearly wasn't because he appreciated his opponent's talent, but because he wanted to remember the sect behind his opponent. Moreover, after getting the answer he wanted, he immediately finished off his opponent. He couldn't help but grin. His little junior brother was so relaxed, which meant he was somewhat confident. If he couldn't survive this battle, then remembering his opponent's sect was meaningless. No wonder he would report his sect before every battle. Li Baxian thought he was a good kid who knew etiquette, but he didn't expect that he would just remember them in his little notebook. In the ring, Lu Ye raised his hand. I need to rest. He didn't continue to kill. He had defeated 5 people in a row in the first battle, and 4 of them were killed. Except for the first one who was a 5th order, the others were all 6th order. The initial display of strength was enough. The spirit chi in his body was consumed, but not by much. After all, every battle ended quickly, but this was a protracted battle, so he needed to rest to ensure that his spirit chi was abundant. This was his right, and also something that was agreed upon in the Heaven's secret contract. Naturally, no one from Myriad Demon Ridge could refuse. Soon, Lu Ye returned to his camp. Under the care of Li Baxian, Wei Yang, and the others, he swallowed a spirit pill and pretended to take out 2 spirit stones. He didn't construct spirit-gathering spirit runes in his spirit apertures because the time to rest was too short. No matter how small the consumption of spirit-gathering spirit runes was, there was still a consumption. The cost was not proportional to the benefit. He just switched his secret art to gluttonous feast to speed up the refinement of the spirit pill. While he was recuperating, several experts from the Myriad Demon's Ridge had gathered together and were secretly discussing how to deal with the situation. Han Jiyu was called over, and the master in the top 20 of the spirit stream list asked, "The strength and speed of this boy from Blue Blood sect are extraordinary. This is not something a fifth-order cultivator can possess. Was he like this before?" In the previous few battles, they could see that the biggest reason why Lu Yi could defeat stronger opponents was not because of the defensive spirit rune, but because of the speed and strength of his attack. In these few battles, the number of times Lu Yi had activated his defensive spirit rune could be counted on one hand. So, even if his cultivation was higher by one order, his speed was not as fast, and his strength was not as strong. He was still not his opponent. This question confused Han Jiyu. She really didn't know what Lu Yi was like before. During the Dragon Spring Festival, she was only sitting in the main hall of the central peak, so she didn't see with her own eyes how Lu Yi killed her own cultivators. After pondering for a moment, Han Jiyu said, "This might have something to do with him entering the Dragon's Spring to temper his body." Dragon's Spring to temper his body? The person who asked the question frowned. Obviously, he had never heard of it. The Spirit Stream battlefield was so big, and there were resources everywhere. Although the Dragon Spring was good, it was only for low-level cultivators. It wasn't very famous in the entire battlefield. Han Jiyu briefly explained the Dragon Spring Festival, and finally said, "This time, there was a problem with the Dragon Spring. When our Tai Luo sect disciples entered, the power of the Dragon Spring was almost negligible. After that, we checked with Blue Feather Mountain and found that they didn't get many benefits." Speaking of this, she was angry. The Dragon Spring Festival was not only a competition between the disciples of the three sects to enter the Dragon Spring, but it was also a confrontation between the three forces. Tai Luo sect had lost so many people this time, and it was not easy for them to get some spots. In the end, their disciples didn't get many benefits inside, which was equivalent to those disciples dying in vain. No one could bear this, so when Han Jiyu heard the news about Lu Yi, she hurried over to kill him. It seems that it has nothing to do with the Dragon Spring. The Myriad Demon Ridge Master frowned. So, it seems that he is talented. No wonder he had the courage to jump out and be so arrogant, even daring to challenge the entire Myriad Demon Ridge. However, he didn't panic. This wheel battle had just begun. Although 5 people had been defeated, there were still many people who hadn't fought. As long as they arranged it well, Lu Yi would be dead in 3 days. Chapter 162. An incense stick worth of time passed quickly. Lu Yi stood up and walked to his battlefield. Myriad Demon Ridge's side immediately faced a tall man. This man was bare-chested and had thick hair on his chest. What was even more eye-catching was the pair of horns on his head. This was a monster cultivator. Tall and sturdy figures and vigorous blood and chi were the characteristics of many Yao cultivators, so they were very suitable to walk the path of body cultivation. The major sects also liked to recruit such Yao cultivators. With a little training, they would be good disciples. This monster cultivator also held a round shield the size of a washbasin in one hand. Looking at the spirit aura, it was obvious that this was a good spirit artifact. Myriad Demon Ridge's response was obvious. Since Lu Yi, a 5th-order cultivator, had strength and speed that surpassed a 6th order, they would not let an armament cultivator fight. Because even if they were both armament cultivators, they would not be able to compare in strength and speed. Just having a higher cultivation was meaningless. The few armament cultivators who had fought before were the best examples. Since armament cultivators were not available and ghost cultivators were few in number, they were not suitable for head-on combat. Therefore, they could only choose body cultivators and spirit cultivators. Lu Ye's offensive power was indeed very strong. Since that was the case, they would use a strong defense to deal with him. After seeing Lu Ye's previous battles, Myriad Demon Ridge did not expect to take him down in a few battles, but there would come a time when he could not hold on. When that time came, Myriad Demon Ridge would be able to pick the fruits of victory. Blue Blood Sect, Lu Yi. Lu Yi was still polite. The monster cultivator's mouth twitched. He did not want to respond, but if he did not respond, it would seem that he was afraid of Lu Yi. So, he shouted, 100 Barbarian Mountain, Niu Meng. When his voice fell, he raised the shield spirit artifact on his arm and poured his spirit chi into it. The shield's defense expanded, forming a barrier that covered a radius of 1 meter in front of him. His vitality began to boil as he gathered his spirit chi to form a second layer of defense around his body. He assumed a defensive posture. This was the plan his senior brother had formulated when he was preparing to go on stage. He was good at blocking others' attacks, but he was not good at offense. His speed was not as good as his opponent's, so his senior brother had told him to defend himself as soon as he went on stage. He did not need to do too much, just focus on defending against the attacks of Blue Blood Sect and try to delay as much as possible to consume his opponent's physical strength and energy. He did as he was told. However, the expected attack didn't come. He raised his eyes and looked forward through his spirit tool, but he saw that Lu Yi didn't charge at him like he had in the previous battle. Instead, he stood quietly in place, looking at him indifferently. Fierce Bull scratched his head and turned to look at his senior brothers and sisters. Clearly, he wanted to ask them how they should deal with this situation. The several senior brothers and senior sisters were also dumbfounded. They hadn't expected Lu Yi, who had been so aggressive just a moment ago, to suddenly change. An 8th Order cultivator who also had the characteristics of a monster cultivator said, "If he doesn't come over, kill him and force him to fight you." Stalling for time was clearly advantageous to Lu Yi. The Heaven's secret contract had a 3-day time limit, so the Myriad Demon Ridge didn't want to stall for time no matter what. They wanted nothing more than to keep fighting with Lu Yi. If it weren't for Li Baxian's strenuous efforts, they wouldn't have given him the time it takes for an incense stick to burn after each battle. "Oh!" Fierce Bull responded, raised his spirit tool, and rushed towards Lu Yi. Although his speed wasn't fast, his momentum was astonishing, giving off the feeling of a wall crashing into him. After entering the spirit stream battlefield for so long, this was the first time Lu Yi had encountered an opponent who had put up such a strong defense before the battle had even begun. He didn't rush over immediately and was just looking for a flaw in his opponent's defense, but after looking around, there didn't seem to be any. Seeing that his opponent was already rushing over, he could only take action. The distance between them quickly closed, and when it was about time, Fierce Bull pulled back his arm slightly before pushing it out again. At that moment, the spirit chi barrier formed from the shield spirit tool on his arm expanded outwards, as if a real wall was crashing into Lu Yi. If this hit landed, Lu Yi would at least be dizzy for a while, if not broken bones or broken tendons. Fortunately, Lu Yi sensed that something was wrong and leapt up, flying over Fierce Bull's head and slashing down with his saber. Fierce Bull raised his hand, using the defensive power of his spirit tool to block this attack. Before he could turn around, the sound of a saber slicing through the air came from behind him. A saber light flashed, and Fierce Bull felt his protective spirit power and blood chi being sliced apart. Pain radiated from his back, and he hurriedly turned around, throwing out a punch. However, Lu Yi had already retreated, and his punch hit thin air. In an instant, the exchange of blows ended with a wound on the back of this demon cultivator called Fierce Bull. Ouch! Fierce Bull's nostrils flared, and his eyes turned red. The intense pain filled his already dull mind with rage, and he only wanted to crush this enemy in front of him. This was the disadvantage of demonic beasts. When their cultivation level wasn't high, their intelligence wasn't high, and they were easily influenced by their bestial instincts. This situation would only improve after reaching the Cloud River tier. With this thought in mind, he reached out to grab Lu Yi. His large, fan-like hand opened wide, almost completely blocking Lu Ye's vision. Lu Yi lowered his body, slid under Fierce Bull's armpit, and arrived behind him again. He slashed down at the same spot. Fierce Bull staggered, and blood flowed from his back, dyeing the ground red. He turned around again, wanting to fight again, but another thunderous voice called out, "Admit defeat!" It was the 8th Order senior brother who couldn't stand it anymore. He knew that his junior brother Bull would die if they continued fighting, so he rushed out, grabbed Fierce Bull's horns, and dragged him back into the crowd. Fierce Bull was at a loss. Lu Yi didn't chase after him. He felt that his opponent this time was a little silly, but this demonic beast was indeed powerful. He didn't die after taking 2 slashes from him. One had to know that each slash was enhanced with sharpness spirit runes. An ordinary 6th Order would have been cut in half, but although Fierce Bull's injuries weren't light, they weren't life-threatening. This made him realize that if he were to fight against a demonic beast in the future, he would have to slash a few more times. "Little junior brother, do you need to rest?" Li Baxian asked with concern. "No need." Lu Yi shook his head and looked at the Myriad Demon Ridge camp. Another sturdy body cultivator stepped forward with a solemn look on his face. 20 breaths later, this body cultivator fell into a pool of blood, a huge wound on his neck bleeding profusely as his body twitched. Although this guy was also a body cultivator, he didn't have Fierce Bull's innately strong physique, so he couldn't escape death. Battle after battle continued, and unless Lu Yi needed to rest, the Myriad Demon Ridge side would send a new challenger onto the stage every time a battle ended. The Myriad Demon Ridge side originally planned to use body cultivators to consume Lu Ye's physical strength and energy, but after a few battles, they helplessly found that although this idea was good, it couldn't be implemented because even body cultivators couldn't resist Lu Ye's slashes. The spirit artifact in the hands of this blue blood sect disciple was too sharp. The defense and physique that body cultivators relied on to survive was simply too fragile in front of his long saber. This was proven after Lu Yi shattered a body cultivator's defensive spirit artifact with just 3 slashes. That was a defensive spirit artifact. Even if it was only a low-rank spirit artifact, it was still a defensive spirit artifact. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it. The Myriad Demon Ridge side tried to send out a few more body cultivators, but the results were even worse. Because of the limitations of the arena, the body cultivators could only be 20 meters away from Lu Yi at most. With Lu Ye's full speed, he could cross the distance of 20 meters in 3 breaths. It was easy to imagine what would happen to a body cultivator after getting close to a body cultivator. As night fell, the cultivators of Grand Heaven Alliance were talking loudly. Some were even drinking wine and playing the zither. It was extremely lively. On the other hand, the Myriad Demon Ridge side was shrouded in a gloomy atmosphere like a fog on a cloudy day. All the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators had ugly expressions, as if their parents had died. There was no other reason. Lu Yi had been waiting in the arena for half an hour, but no one came up to fight. Throughout the day, more than a dozen people had been killed by Lu Yi. Even the best 6th Order cultivators couldn't last more than 30 breaths in front of Lu Yi. Most of them were either killed or injured after a few slashes. Those who shouted quickly could admit defeat to save their lives, but those who shouted slowly could only die on the spot. In short, the people of Myriad Demon Ridge were scared of killing. No one dared to go up to fight easily anymore, even if the person standing there was a living treasure trove. Moreover, with each victory, Lu Ye's body had undergone some wonderful changes. His blood chi and murderous aura condensed around him, forming an indescribable momentum. It seemed to be the manifestation of his own belief. He was unstoppable and invincible. Brotherly, if your junior brother doesn't die this time, his future will be boundless, a spirit stream list master from Grand Heaven Alliance said to Li Baxin. The corners of Li Baxin's mouth almost reached his ears as he laughed heartily. My junior brother, of course. Brotherly, you know what I'm talking about. Li Baxin's eyes flashed, but he didn't answer. It wasn't easy to answer. Invincible posture, the blessing of heaven's secret. Li Baxin didn't answer, but someone beside him spoke up. It was another spirit stream list master. Obviously, he had also noticed something. Li Baxin smiled gently. It's still too early to say. There are already signs. That person slowly shook his head. The blessing of heaven's secret was something that only existed in legends. In the 9 continents, in the spirit stream battlefield, heaven's secret was everywhere. It was said that those with invincible posture would be able to obtain the blessing of heaven's secret and be reborn. Being invincible was a saying, an aura, and a belief. In order to form this belief, one had to accumulate it through battle after battle. When the accumulation reached a limit, one would be able to trigger the will of the heavens and obtain its blessings. However, since ancient times, there were many cultivators in the 9 continents, but only a few had obtained the blessing of heaven's secret. The last time it appeared was a few dozen years ago. The person who was blessed by heaven's secret was called Feng Wujiang. Coincidentally, this person was also a disciple of the Blue Blood sect. Chapter 163. The masters on the spirit stream list all had good eyesight, so naturally, they were able to see through this. This time, Lu Yi had taken the initiative to challenge the various sects of Myriad Demon Ridge. Although he had been forced to do so, it was actually an opportunity for him to accumulate a bit of invincibility. It was just that he didn't know this. Of course, if he wanted to accumulate strength, he first had to survive. Although Lu Yi had frightened the Myriad Demon Ridge side during the day and no one dared to challenge him, in fact, the situation hadn't improved much for him. In fact, it had even worsened a bit. Because of the battle during the day, the Myriad Demon Ridge side had basically figured out Lu Ye's foundation and could now better target him. At this moment, no one dared to challenge Lu Yi because there were some disputes and disagreements between the various sects of Myriad Demon Ridge, and several spirit stream list masters were trying to mediate. In the end, it was the top 20 masters who spoke up. Then it's decided. No matter who killed Lu Yi, they will get 20% of the reward, and the rest will be divided equally among the sects who contributed. Does anyone have any objections? When he said this, he coldly glanced at the stewards of the various forces around him. The disagreements and disputes on the Myriad Demon Ridge side were mainly about the reward for killing Lu Yi. Everyone had seen the battle during the day, and only a few people had survived. Each sect could only fight once, so if a disciple they sent out died, they wouldn't have the chance to receive the reward. This led to everyone wanting to take advantage of the situation. If this problem wasn't resolved, it would be difficult for the Myriad Demon Ridge side to work together. After all, the rewards added up were too great, and no one was willing to become someone else's stepping stone. The decision that the one who killed Lu Yi would take 20% of the reward, and the rest would be divided equally among the sects who contributed was supported by everyone. In this way, even if their disciples failed to kill Lu Yi, as long as they contributed, they would be able to get a share of the benefit. If there are no objections, then arrange for your own people to find a way to break his fangs. Whoever breaks his fangs will get an extra 10% after this. The master said coldly. The strength displayed by Lu Yi had made Myriad Demon Ridge abandon any plans to take his life in a certain battle. Although he was only a 5th-order cultivator, he was far stronger than an average 6th-order cultivator. Unless a 7th-order master took action, it was impossible to be his opponent. As such, Myriad Demon Ridge had divided the matter of killing Lu Yi into 2 parts. A moment later, Lu Yi, who was sitting cross-legged on the stage, slowly stood up and swallowed the dried meat in his mouth. Eating was to replenish his physical strength and to refine his essence into qi. He couldn't completely rely on spirit pills to replenish his spiritual energy. His talent tree had lost its ability to burn pill toxins. If he took too many spirit pills, it would cause his spiritual energy to become obscure and affect his combat ability. Now, his spiritual energy was no longer as pure as before because he had consumed a lot of spiritual pills during his escape. Although the effect of transforming energy into qi was much worse, it was better than nothing. Moreover, with the assistance of the gluttonous meal, he could digest things very quickly. Another person from Myriad Demon Ridge jumped out. Lu Yi looked over and saw that it was a weapon cultivator holding a long spear. As usual, he exchanged greetings with the other party. The opponent rushed towards him, the long spear in his hand flashing as he attacked Lu Ye's vital points. After a few dozen breaths, the weapon cultivator was cut down to the ground. Lu Yi didn't continue fighting because he found that the effect of his display of strength during the day was not obvious, so he simply didn't want to waste his energy. These guys from Myriad Demon Ridge didn't seem to be afraid of death. This might have something to do with the special environment of the Spirit Stream battlefield. The two camps here had been fighting each other all year round. Every cultivator who reached the Sixth Order had to kill their way to the top, so life and death battles with their enemies were commonplace for them. Thinking back to the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators he had killed before, it seemed that very few of them had begged for mercy before dying. Most of them had said ruthless words before they died. For example, Dong Shu Yi had said before he died that he would wait for Lu Yi on the Yellow Springs Road, even though it was useless, because everyone knew that begging for mercy was useless if they couldn't escape after being defeated by a cultivator from the enemy camp. This created a kind of ruthlessness in the cultivators of the 9 regions. The higher one's cultivation was, the more obvious it was. Rest, kill the enemy, rest again, and kill the enemy again, over and over again. Fresh lives jumped up one after another. Most of them turned into corpses, and only a few managed to escape. The sky gradually brightened, and the losses of Myriad Demon Ridge continued to increase. However, this didn't seem to have much of an impact on the latecomers. Those who jumped up were scared, but this didn't affect their determination to fight. Another night fell. The ground of the arena was covered in blood, and the pungent smell of blood permeated the air. It was so thick that it seemed impossible to disperse. Near the Grand Heaven Alliance camp, Lu Yi sat cross-legged, holding a spirit stone in each hand. There was still a piece of jerky in his mouth that he hadn't swallowed. His head was lowered as he took a nap. After fighting for 2 days and 1 night in a row, he was already very tired, so he had to rest every time he fought, taking advantage of this rare opportunity to rest for a while. As for recovery, under the automatic operation of gluttony meal, he didn't need to worry about it after swallowing a spirit pill. Wei Yang looked at him from the side with a pained expression. After such a long battle, it was inevitable that Lu Yi would be injured. Under normal circumstances, Wei Yang could easily deal with these injuries, but because of the restriction of the Heaven's secret contract, Lu Yi could not borrow any external help. Even his wounds were bandaged by himself. His clothes had long been stained red with blood and were thrown away by him. His upper body was wrapped in some cotton cloth, and his wounds were covered with the healing powder that Hua Si had given him. "How many matches has it been?" someone asked Li Baxian. Li Baxian squirmed his dry lips. 32 matches. 32 matches. The person who asked the question took a light breath and looked at Lu Yi with a complicated expression. What an amazing record this was! It must be known that this was 32 matches of cross-realm battles. According to the current frequency, they should be able to fight 40 matches by dawn. Previously, when the two sides signed the Heavenly Mystery Contract, only 43 sects had left their names on it. No one thought that Lu Yi could fight 43 matches. Even Li Baxian didn't think this would happen. He thought that if Lu Yi could survive the 3-day limit, he would win. If Li Baxin didn't think of this, then the myriad Demon Ridge side naturally didn't. What kind of person could fight 43 matches without losing? Such a thing had never happened in the cultivation world of the 9 provinces. In the eyes of the myriad Demon Ridge masters who led this matter, Lu Yi was dead for sure. But everyone underestimated Lu Ye's killing speed. Those 6th-order realm cultivators were often cut down by Lu Yi in a very short time. Only half of the 3-day limit had passed, and 32 matches had already been fought. On the Heavenly Mystery contract, there were only 11 sects that hadn't fought. Even if more cultivators from both sides heard the news and gathered here, causing the number of people on the Golden Light to exceed 4,000, as long as Lu Yi was still alive after 43 matches, he would win. No matter how unwilling the myriad Demon Ridge cultivators were, they didn't dare to do anything. Because of the restrictions of the Heavenly Mystery contract, if they tried to attack Lu Yi, not only would they be attacked by Grand Heaven Alliance, but the 43 sects that had left their names on the Heavenly Mystery contract, as well as the masters on the Spirit Stream list, would also attack them. This was the justice of the Heavenly Mystery contract, and no one was allowed to provoke it. There were only 11 matches left until the final victory, but Li Baxin's heart was becoming more and more uneasy. He didn't know if his little junior brother could continue, because the spirit aura around his little junior brother's body had become somewhat obscure. This was caused by the large number of spirit pills he had swallowed. This undoubtedly had a great impact on his little junior brother, as the obscurity of his spirit aura would affect his strength. The most obvious point was that Lu Ye's killing speed had slowed down. His saber wasn't as sharp as before, and his speed wasn't as fast as before. Every battle took longer and longer, and the longer the battle, the greater his consumption and the more spirit pills he needed to replenish his spirit aura. This was a vicious cycle. After an incense stick's worth of time, Wei Yang couldn't bear it, but she still gently poked Lu Yi, little junior brother. Lu Yi suddenly raised his head, his eyes filled with exhaustion. At first, he was at a loss, but then he reacted and swallowed the dried meat in his mouth. He stood up with his saber and looked at the myriad Demon Ridge cultivators opposite him, saying the same words he had said more than 30 times. Blue Blood Sect, Lu Yi. The battle began again. On the stage, saber lights flashed and figures rushed forward, blood splattering everywhere. One battle after another began, then subsided, and the sky lit up again. On the stage, a petite figure moved like lightning, jumping around Lu Yi at an extremely fast speed. Lu Yi had several wounds on his body, and his flesh was torn apart. These were all caused by his opponent. He held his saber and stood quietly in place. After fighting so many battles, he finally met his first opponent who was difficult to deal with. This was a Yao cultivator with 2 furry ears on his head. He looked like a cat, but it wasn't a big deal. The key was that this guy was as agile as a cat. In terms of speed, Lu Yi wouldn't be able to beat him even at his peak. This guy must be one of the myriad Demon Ridge's trump cards. They hadn't let her fight before because Lu Yi was in a good state. Now that Lu Yi was exhausted, the myriad Demon Ridge probably felt that it was time to let this cat demon out. Once this trump card was brought out, Lu Yi fell into a passive position. He wasn't as fast as his opponent, and after several slashes, not only did he fail to kill his opponent, but he also exposed openings. This was how the wounds on his body came about. Another round of fast and dazzling exchanges ensued. When Lu Ye's saber fell, it left behind an afterimage. At the same time, pain came from his waist. He kicked out, and the cat demon blocked it with both hands. She flew back and landed nimbly. Lu Yi staggered back, his saber stabbing into the ground. He almost fell to his knees, causing Wei Yang to cry out in alarm. Chapter 164. On the blood-stained arena, Lu Yi looked up and saw the cat demon crouching with one hand on the ground and the other on her mouth. There was a pair of claws on each of her hands, and they were extremely sharp. She licked the blood off the claws, and her eyes shone with a demonic light. She let out a soft meow, as if provoking Lu Yi. She had a faint smile on her face. She could see that Lu Yi was about to lose and that victory was waving at her. She had a smooth figure and sharp claws. She was no cat, she was more like a cheetah. The figure crouching on the ground suddenly rushed forward and made a sharp turn when she got close. Lu Ye's eyes turned and looked to the side. He stood up and stabbed with his saber. An ear-piercing sound of friction rang out as sparks flew in all directions. Cat Demon's figure was revealed as the tip of the blade pierced through her cheek. The sharp blade left a small wound on her smooth and tender face. However, she was smiling because at this moment, she had already used her claws to clasp Lu Ye's long blade. Lu Yi wanted to pull his saber back, but he couldn't. The cat demon's other claws immediately fell and a light flashed on them. With a cracking sound, the spirit artifact saber that had accompanied Lu Yi for several months broke, leaving only half of its body. He had obtained this spirit artifact from the fair-skinned cultivator he killed in Blue Cloud Mountain. It only had a single seal to strengthen the saber, so it was the worst quality spirit artifact. The fair-skinned cultivator's cultivation wasn't high, so he couldn't afford a good spirit artifact. But even if the quality wasn't high, this spirit artifact saber still had unimaginable power in Lu Ye's hands because he could enhance it with sharpness spirit runes. Along the way, at least 50 or 60 myriad demons ridge cultivators had died under this saber. If this round of tag team battles were included, the number had already exceeded 100. But today, the saber that had accompanied Lu Yi all this time had been cut in half. Many cultivators from Grand Heaven Alliance paled. A cultivator's strength would definitely be affected if their spirit artifact was broken, especially for Lu Yi. The reason why he could kill so many sixth-order cultivators was partly because of his own strength, but this spirit artifact also played an important role. On the other hand, the myriad demons ridge cultivators all breathed a sigh of relief, especially the masters on the spirit stream list. They were all grinning from ear to ear. It was a sure win. Whether it was Grand Heaven Alliance or Myriad Demon Ridge, they all believed that the saber in Lu Ye's hand was an excellent quality spirit artifact. The fact that the sixth-order cultivators couldn't even fight back was the best proof. This spirit artifact saber was Lu Ye's fangs. Therefore, the Myriad Devil Ridge had been trying to find a way to cut off this fang. As long as this fang was broken, the Myriad Devil Ridge would be in an invincible position. The cultivators that came out before would always choose to attack Lu Yi. It wasn't because they thought they could beat Lu Yi, but because they wanted to break the saber in Lu Ye's hand. Unfortunately, no one had ever succeeded. At this moment, the cat demon did not disappoint. With her swift speed and 2 claws, she broke the saber that was stained with the blood of the Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivator. With his fangs broken, this blue blood sect disciple named Lu Yi no longer had any room to resist. The moment the long saber broke, the cat demon pounced on Lu Yi excitedly. Her 2 bright eyes were filled with excitement. She seemed to see a large amount of rewards waving at her. She even saw Lu Yi brandishing the broken saber and slashing at her. If it were before, she would definitely dodge such a saber. After all, she was known for her speed and her defense was not very good. If she was hit by Lu Ye's saber, she wouldn't have a good ending. But now, she didn't dodge. Instead, she slammed into Lu Ye's chest, and the claws on her right hand went straight for Lu Ye's heart. Pucci, blood splashed as the cat demon's claws stabbed into Lu Ye's heart, but she froze in place. She raised her head and looked at Lu Yi with a puzzled expression. How did you? Lu Yi kicked the cat demon in front of her and sent her flying. While she was still in the air, she raised her hand to cover her throat. When she staggered to the ground, a large amount of blood flowed out from her hands. Blood also filled her mouth and nose. She seemed to want to say something but couldn't. After struggling for a moment, the light in her eyes quickly faded. Lu Yi raised his hand to cover his chest and took a deep breath. He sensed that the injury wasn't serious and didn't touch his heart. At that moment, he had the opportunity to activate the defensive spirit rune to block the attack. But now, his spiritual energy was decreasing. Moreover, after swallowing spirit pills, his spiritual energy became more and more obscure. So, under the premise that he could conserve his spiritual energy, he would do his best to conserve it. For this reason, he was willing to suffer a small injury. Amidst the silence, he walked to the Grand Sky Alliance's camp with the broken saber and sat down cross-legged. He took out healing powder from his storage bag and smeared it on his chest. Wei Yang looked at him and clenched her fist. She resisted the urge to bandage his wound. Idiot! On the myriad Devil Ridge's side, an expert on the spirit stream list gritted his teeth and cursed. Lu Ye's weapon being broken just now was definitely the closest the myriad Devil Ridge's side had taken to victory. At that time, the cat demon only needed to be more vigilant and had a great chance of killing Lu Yi. But this guy was too complacent and had his throat slit. He died without knowing how. After the 40th battle, there were only 3 battles left. The sky was already bright. However, it didn't matter anymore. Lu Ye's long saber was broken, so his strength was bound to be greatly weakened. The last 3 battles would be able to take him down no matter what. The experts on the spirit stream list looked at each other and let out a long sigh. Before signing the Heavenly Fate contract with Li Baxian, none of them had expected the situation to develop like this. Everyone thought that no matter how powerful Lu Yi was, he wouldn't be able to last 10 rounds. But now it was more than 10 rounds. It was already the 40th round. At this point, they were most thankful that Han Zhiyu had provided them with the information. Otherwise, without knowing anything, they would have already killed all 43 sections. That would have been the biggest joke of the myriad Devil Ridge. In front of the arena, the 3 cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge looked at each other. They were the challengers of the last 3 sections. One of them was from the Sacred Flame sect. There was a burning flame on his forehead, which was the symbol of their sacred flame. The other 2 were disciples from 2nd or 3rd rank sections. The reason they were ranked last was naturally related to their background. The sects behind the previous challengers were not as powerful as theirs, so they were ranked first. The first 40 people had used their blood and death to pave the way to victory. No matter who went up next, they would have a great chance of picking the fruits of victory. This was not only related to the generous rewards, but also their own futures. Therefore, all 3 of them wanted to go up next. However, the Sacred Flame sect was only a 4th rank sect, which was slightly weaker than the other 2 sections. After a moment of hesitation, they took the initiative to take a step back. It was obvious that they wanted to give the opportunity to the other 2. Senior brother Hu Ping, what do you think? One of them asked, eager to try. Junior brother Xian has given me a difficult problem. If I say I want to go first, you will definitely not agree. But if I let you go first, I will not be happy either. Hu Ping lowered his voice. At this juncture, we can't decide the winner first. Yes, but there has to be a first. Xian nodded. How about this? Let him choose. Whoever he chooses will be the winner. Well, that's good. After a simple discussion, the 2 of them stood in place and waited. They looked at Lu Yi, who was adjusting himself in the arena, as if they were looking at a dead man. Near the Haotian alliance, Lu Yi silently sensed his own condition. It was very bad. Even if he had 30 minutes to rest, he could not recover much of his spiritual power. After such a series of battles, he only had about 30% of his spiritual power left. Although there were many injuries on his body, they were not serious. The healing powder that Hua Si had made for him was very effective for external injuries. However, the symptoms of blood loss still made him feel a little dizzy. He did not know how many people he had killed, nor did he know how many more battles he had to fight. However, he knew that if someone accepted the challenge, he had to stand up. This was the path he had chosen. As he had said before, he was not afraid of death, but he did not want to wait for it. The candles on the side burned out, and it was time to rest. Lu Yi stood up with the help of his broken saber and walked forward step by step. Wei Yang opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but in the end she did not say anything. She wanted to tell Lu Yi that he only needed to win 3 more battles, but she was afraid that her words would affect Lu Ye's condition. Sometimes it was not a good thing to know the future. On top of the golden light there was a huge crowd. There were already more than 5,000 cultivators from both camps gathered here. When Lu Yi was resting, the sound of people talking could be heard. The scene was chaotic, but when he walked out, the whole world fell silent. Several thousand pairs of eyes were focused on him. Even the cultivators from the myriad Demon Ridge had lost their previous contempt and mockery. Everyone looked at him with an extremely dignified gaze. A 5th-order cultivator who had fought 40 battles in a row and had not lost a single battle. Such a proud record would not allow anyone to blaspheme. Even the cultivators from the enemy camp would give him enough respect. It was foreseeable that for a long time in the future, the figure who carried a broken saber and walked step by step onto the blood-soaked stage would be the nightmare of many myriad Demon Ridge cultivators. On the stage, Lu Yi stood still as the mountain wind whistled past. On the myriad Demon Ridge side, 2 figures stood up. In the next moment, several thousand pairs of sharp eyes from the Haotian Alliance stared at them. There was no lack of masters on the spirit stream list among them. Murderous intent instantly surged. The 2 myriad Demon Ridge cultivators were so scared that they almost shrank back. This battle array was too terrifying. Hu Ping knew that the situation was not good and hurriedly explained, "It's not 2 against 1. We just want Brother Yi to choose his own opponent." Xian nodded repeatedly, indicating that they disdained to do something as tasteless as 2 against 1. Lu Yi raised his broken saber and pointed it at Hu Ping with a calm expression. "Then I'll choose you." Hu Ping raised his eyebrows in pleasant surprise. Although Xian was unwilling, he still stepped back. Hu Ping took a deep breath and was just about to introduce himself to Lu Yi when he heard a loud thud. He could see Lu Ye's blood-stained dirt flying into the air as Lu Yi shot towards him like an arrow leaving the bowstring. Hu Ping was shocked. This guy would always introduce himself. Why didn't he even give him a chance to speak this time? Was he crazy?